Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. There were no decisions made, no resolutions made during the executive session. Jim wasn't there, but covering what he would normally say, so thank you. Okay, right now we'll open for the public portion of the meeting. Since this is not a public hearing, different rules apply. So if somebody would like to speak about any agenda item, please come up, identify yourself, and you have 2 minutes to speak. Okay, so anybody that would like to come up, please come up to the podium, identify yourself. And then after that, we'll have three parties actually make some comments and discuss a little bit more about what they are going to be proposing to the board at a future time. So if there's somebody who'd like to make a comment, please come on up. Sure, come on up here.
Is it on anything tonight, sir? I'm not exactly...
No, just on the agenda items.
On the agenda?
Yeah.
Great,
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Sure.
My name's Manitar. I live up on Teresa Boulevard. I've been here for about 25 years-ish or something. First of all, let me commend you on respecting our colors before the meeting started. Excellent. Good way to go. I'm here commenting on Mr. O'Donnell's proposal, I'm assuming, which is going to take place this evening. I just don't know how we get to putting so many residents on such a small parcel in an area that's primarily 1 acre zoning and single-family homes. I mean, we just looked it up. I think it's about 35-ish acres. We want to put 164 residents up there. From what I understand, the gentleman has a great reputation on building, not disparaging that. But just the fact that we have one-lane roads, on Old Hopewell, on Pine Ridge, and on Cedar Hill. I just don't know how that's going to flow in. We're asking for a lot of changes here: water, sewer, variance for residency. We have a master plan. I don't know how this fits into that kind of thing. That's really my. I don't know if it's a question, if it's a statement.
No,
it's
fine.
It's my thing.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
And I also worry about, real quick, is that when one person owns that many units. I was a cop in the city of Poughkeepsie, and Corley's Manor was owned by one company. And when we had issues there, it was very difficult because one person held the reins on the whole area. I'm not, once again, not disparaging the gentleman, just saying it made it much more difficult to do with that.
Thank you, Matt, for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I appreciate you guys.
And I'm sure, and certainly hopeful, actually, he better be addressing, some of these, issues later on, because this is the first we have to really hear about it, too. So come on up, please, identify yourself.
John Gorman, 6 Thompson Terrace. I've lived up here for 35 years. My family moved up here the day after I was born. And the reason they moved up here was to get away from the city, get away from the overdevelopment, get away from their neighbors being able to hear a secret. It was for a peace of mind. It was for a backyard. It was for the safety of their kids to go out on the street and play. I have 2 kids under the age of 3, and we live right off Pine Ridge, right where this neighborhood will be exiting out in. Now, I know some of you may have young kids, but we don't have a park in our neighborhood. Our streets are our park. It's where we go to walk our families every night. It's where we go to see our friends and neighbors in this day and age. It's where we go to congregate. With something like this that is unnecessary on a road that is already overpopulated and over-trafficked, it is something that really needs to be looked at. There are a lot of things, and I know this is just a small dose of people that are against this. I know we want this town to grow, but there is reasons to not have the town grow like this. We just redid Old Hopewell Road, that's great, but the traffic that it'll create is unnecessary. The livelihoods, people moved up here for a reason. They don't move up here to be overpopulated and oversaturated with developments. And I'm fearful that the reasons a lot of people in this room live here are slowly falling away because of overdevelopment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Bernadette Bodie, and I live on Winfield Terrace. I've been a resident on Winfield Terrace for about 30 years. I live alongside the property that's being targeted for destruction. And I say destruction because that property is really not suitable for this type of development. It's very steeply sloped throughout. It's on rock. When my kids were little and they would play in my yard and they'd have balls, if a ball left my property and went into that land, it was lost because we could not even walk down from my yard into that to retrieve a ball. That's the steepness of the grade, which doesn't come through when you're looking at the pictures of the little lines on the charts. It's very, very steep, dangerously so, which also begs the question, how are cars going to access all these 164 units when they are built? I found when we were here back in September listening to a presentation, we were told that the Winfield Terrace would not be an access route. It would be blocked off and only used for emergency vehicles. We don't want it cut through. There's currently, the cul-de-sac ends over 100 feet from where that property begins, because there's the cul-de-sac and then there's a grade going down to the property line. Okay, it's not a continuous road at this time. Those are some reasons. As was stated earlier, that property's zoned R40, just like all the other properties in the neighborhood. There's no reason to throw the master plan, the comprehensive plan developed by and adopted for this town, away for the sake of a development. This is not appropriate. In fact, there's a term for it. It's called spot zoning, and it's illegal. Our friends at the state inform us that spot zoning refers to the rezoning of a parcel of land to a use category different from the surrounding area, usually to benefit a single owner or a single development interest. This, my friends, is what we have going on here, what you've been asked to look at tonight. This is classic spot zoning.
Okay, time's up.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a lot more to say.
Well, we'll have a public hearing. This is not a public hearing by any means. I wanted to at least get this out to the community. This is an informational session only. And the board is not considering anything tonight. So if you would please, there's plenty of other people that do want to speak, and I want to try to get through as many as we can. And there will be plenty of opportunity to go through, the points that I think you have. So at least let's get the main points out, okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
The young lady that spoke earlier, she said, what kind of a future we want to create is an important question. And what you folks, our representative officials, decide about this determines a big thing about the future of Wappingers, because once the forested land, our natural resource is gone, it can't come back. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, also, if anybody would like to submit written comments, they're certainly free to do so.
Sure. That's fine.
Hi, my name is Ralph Hafner, and I live on Cedar Hill Road, and I've only been in the area for 61 years, which is all my life. And I will make this quick. When this young woman gave such an eloquent presentation on conservation, and I couldn't help but notice that some of the developers in the room clapped and gave her recognition. I hope that wasn't a hypocritical move when we clear-cut these forests, that we don't care about the water conservation and the water absorption rates. So, please.
And I appreciate that. I think, Ralph, we appreciate very much. I'd like to ask a question to the residents of Cedar Hill. Well, why haven't you complained to us? We have 20 violation notices out for the property going west on Cedar Hill, which has been clear-cut, which has had wetlands destroyed.
Underneath the power line of that property?
Yes, all in that area.
Well, who approved that?
Nobody. We have 20 violation notices out there.
Nobody.
Yeah, that's right. We have been trying to get DEC, all that. But I've heard no opposition from any of you, which we'd love to have, because that helps us go make a decision.
Well, that is unfortunate.
Right. So, I'm making you aware now,
But
okay?
is the point being made now that
No.
it's too late to take up a...
This is why we're hearing, but I'm just throwing this out because we've been challenging.
Well, let's not make the same mistake twice.
No, I'm throwing it out so that
Thank you
people
very
can
much.
respond.
Thank you.
No, yeah. Thank you. Come on up. Yes.
Good evening. I'm Mike Tierney. I live on 10 Thompson Terrace. And I'm not sure of the whole process, so I would really like to hear what the process is to get this moving forward. I do have some real concerns. First of all, I think that both projects need to be studied together, not not as separate projects, because you're talking about 500 units between the two that are adjacent to each other. So when there's an environmental study or seeker, they should be done together, not separate. I think that's
Which
really-
projects are you talking about? This one's over on Old Hopewell
One's
Road.
for 164 units and
Yeah.
one's for over 300 units on Cedar Hill.
You know, we're not aware of that, you know, we haven't had
Well,
anybody present
Just
those
for the record,
to
I
us.
hope you
Yeah,
studied them together
right.
and not separate.
No, we did not have a meeting on that. We're not the planning board. We're not the planning board. We're the town board for zoning issues. Yeah, we're not the planning board.
I think the term is,
Sure.
the term is impermissible segmentation. Or, you know, that
Right.
needs to be, they need to be done together for any of those studies. That's important.
Okay, thank you.
Another issue, and I can't talk about all my neighbors, but I have real problems with my wells. And I think that we should have access to sewer and water if you're gonna have access to either of these, because Cedar Hill's been suffering. My well used to be 70 feet, and it worked beautifully, and then all of this development, my last well that I drilled about 9 years ago now is over 500 feet. And it's much harder water, it's much saltier water, and that affects my septic system, it affects everything in our house. And I haven't been talking to all the neighbors, but I'm sure water softener premiums are really good up on Cedar Hill Road,
Right.
Pine Ridge Drive. So please keep that in mind, along with the traffic safety. You know, I don't know who enforces the traffic up there. I've made multiple calls. Top of Cedar Hill down on, going down around Cedar Hill, that corner is still a blind corner where Dorothy Lane and Cedar Hill meet. I'm sure you've heard complaints about that before. But the traffic up there is terrible, and like you said, there's no park. So
Okay.
I'd like to know what the community, you know, piece to that is.
Okay, we need to
Thank
stop.
you.
Thanks. Thank you.
How are you? My name is Don Donardo. I live at 21 Maple Path. I've been there for 25 years. You made me change the address from 190 Smithtown. I don't know why you couldn't find that, but anyway, my well is 980 feet deep. You want to build, and you're saying that you haven't heard about it yet. It was in front of the planning board, but it's coming to you because they kicked it back to you, I believe.
No.
But there's 3 developments, and you should really consider all 3 of these with water, that we do have problems on Smithtown Road, Cedar Hill Road, just to let you know that. And the traffic is horrendous. There should be a traffic study done from Route 9 between the bottlenecks and Hopewell Road. Can't handle it, period. Schools, and I moved up there out of the city to have some peace and quiet. I have 10 acres there, and now this is a 300 apartment dwelling that they want to put behind me? I rest my case.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tim Hunt. Like Mr. Hafner, I've been here all my life, 60 years. Through that time, I've known Mr. O'Donnell for several of them years. I know a lot of projects that he's done, and he's always done the right thing. He does what he says he's gonna do, no botch stuff. He does what he says he's gonna do. And I'm not gonna get involved in how many units and what it's gonna do to the environment and the water and everything else. I'm just telling you, he's a stand-up guy, and I'm in favor of it.
Can I ask you where you live, please?
Stony Kill Road,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. More comments, please?
Hello, my name is Brad Clipp. I live on Wheeler Hill Road. I'd also like to be in favor of Mr. O'Donnell and the work that he's doing. I think before anything's talked about clear cut or any kind of work like that, maybe we know the details. I think that kind of residence is necessary to this area. Being a new resident myself, I'm only here for 5 years. I'm running into some things, having family try to move up where I live, and I think some kind of, not temporary residence, but maybe it's for people that, like my mother, who's a retiree, who wants to rent as a single woman. I think there's some other things to look at, other than like we're hearing clear cut and all the negatives, there are some positives. And Mr. O'Donnell, with a track record that he has, I think it's something to be taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. More? Come on. I have a gentleman coming up.
Dave Harrington, Windless Terrace. I'm in full support, Mr. O'Donnell and his plan. And that is all. Where do you live?
Windless Terrace.
Been here my whole life.
I had,
Hi, my name is Tracy Hernandez. I reside at 192 River Road North. I've known Mr. O'Donnell my whole life, and he's a stand-up guy. Everything that Mr. Hunt said is accurate, and I support his project.
you had, this lady's coming up.
Hello?
Yes, please.
I'm a resident.
You want to
Pull
dip your,
there you go.
Jessica. Have-
Resident of 110 Ben Voorhees Terrace. We've been up there since 1964. My house is over 200 years old. It's a historical house because of its construction. And we have a country setting that we moved there for our children. And that I'm a country girl, and we love living in the country with our wildlife, and we love with our neighbors, and we don't want our trees cut down, and we don't want the traffic. Now, you're going to take that away from us? People that come from the city are so happy to move in a peaceful place, to raise their children. Now with all the violence that's going on with traffic and that. And I tell you, we do have to sacrifice some things. When our wells get low, we save our water to water our plants, to wash our floors with, and the clean rinse water to mop our floors with. But we don't mind that. So you've got to take in consideration of people's lives, not just to make money.
Thank you.
I'm Martin Vanderhill, 324 Cedar Hill Road. Moved up here about 6 years ago after spending over 50 years in the Bronx, and I can tell you about overdevelopment, and this is quality of life issue. And I moved up here for quality of life, and this is going to be a detriment to any kind of quality of life that everyone that lives there knows. And as they said, it's going to rob resources, major traffic problems. This is just not something that this town needs this large in this area right now.
Good evening. My name's Stephen Corinci. I live on Cedar Hill Road. And I heard people talk about this gentleman. I'm sure he's a nice man and he has his best interests in his mind. But is changing the zoning in the best interest and the best financial interest of the town of Wappinger and the people that live here? Is the population there that's going to attend the schools, do those people pay property taxes and school taxes like I do? Would the town be better served to put private residences there on maybe 5-acre lots? I mean, it would be beautiful. It's not my property. It'd be beautiful if it was Forever Wild, or Mark Molinaro would buy it and turn it into Forever Wild for Dutchess County. But this gentleman owns the property. And what is better for the town of Wappinger? All those units or maybe private residence? I'm sure it would look a lot better with those mansions on 5 acres and gather a little bit more tax for the town of Wappinger than those units, which might be nice today, might be nice tomorrow, or they could look like the place on McFarland in 20 years. And that doesn't really look that good. So what the real answer is, what is in the best interest of the town of Wappinger and the people of Wappinger? And I think his plan is in his best financial interest, but I don't think it's in the best financial interest and the interest of the people of the town of Wappinger. And that's why I'm here.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Any other comments on this or any topic? Okay, please.
How you doing? My name is John Levette. I live on Ketchumtown Road, and I would support Mr. O'Donnell in this project as he would do it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Please.
Good evening. I'm Doug LaPerch, my wife Victoria. We reside at 312 Old Hopewell Road. We are also the folks that you just called out
Yes.
about the development along Cedar Hill Road.
Yes.
We are not developers. We are creating an agricultural environment that we work closely with the DEC, Cornell Cooperative Extension, your offices, Central Hudson, and everybody else who sent their way. We have been issued one violation notice.
There's been more than that.
We've been issued one violation
Okay.
notice. Okay, for the record. So everybody understands, we are not developing that property. You see our horses?
Okay.
Our long-term goal. It is agriculture, folks. We are here. We do not support this project. We support agriculture. We support farming. We do not support any further development along Cedar Hill Road. We are here with you.
Yeah, you may.
We will continue to work with the town and any agency that comes our way. We have bonded our project, but we are not here to, create a development by any means. Thanks for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Yes, please, come on up.
My name is Louise Basso, and I live on 116 Van Voorhis Terrace. My property will butt up against where he wants to build, and I don't want a bunch of people coming into my yard, into my house. We've lived there for 32 years. We have 2 1/3 acres, which butts up against there. We enjoy the privacy, we love it there. We really don't want this. And we have a tremendous water problem ourselves, only the water runs down into our property. And the hill will come down, even more water will run down, and we get flooded. And we love the wildlife too. We have deer coming through, coyotes, foxes, everything. It'll just ruin the reason that we live there. Like that gentleman said, if it was single-family houses, it would be different, but apartment complex, absolutely not. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, please.
My name is John Anderson. I live on Maple Path. One thing I'm not hearing anybody address is, does a town really have plans to develop? You need infrastructure to support these. I know you're talking about one development, but coming down the line, there's 3, one right after the other, in the same general area planned. Now, are the police going to be able to handle that? Apartments tend to have more issues with police than single-family houses. Is the fire department going to be able to handle that without any kind of expansion? Are the schools going to be able to handle all these units? Not just this one, I mean, going forward for the other 2. There's like, what, 500, 600 units planned between the 3 of them? That's a lot out of the water table, as we've already talked about. But there's other things we need to talk about. Traffic, roads. Are you going to start condemning people's property along Cedar Hill Road? Well, we're going to widen it. We're going to take your front yard out. And if you do that, where's the money going to come from? Are the development guys going to pay for increased police? Are they going to pay for increased fire department? Are they going to build a new elementary school, expand the junior high or high school? You can't just say, well, we're going to bring in 5,000 new people and have nowhere for the kids to go. We're going to start having 50, 60 kids in a class. These are the kind of things that, with this one and the other ones going forward, that need to be thought about. Not just, well, cutting down trees. I'm not saying that's good either, but there's things outside of just the physical land and pollution. It affects, as one other guy said, quality of life. I mean, Cedar Hill area is nice. Apartment complexes, I don't care how good they're run, eventually turn into looking like a pile of garbage. And I don't need that in my neighborhood. I don't need my property values to drop down because we got all that kind of stuff right down the street. I know it's one of them things, you might have to go somewhere, but why does it gotta go by me? And that's terrible for somebody else, but I don't want the problem, stick it somewhere else. And I know that sucks, but just, it is what it is. And when you decide to go somewhere else, they're gonna say the same thing. But we
Okay.
need to think about plans going forward, not just the short term.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Anne Marie Bible. I've been a resident up here for 35 years, raised 3 children up here. I'm
Here.
over on Moccasin View, right off of All Angels, your district.
Thank you.
And now I have grandchildren that are being raised up here. And it was brought to my attention lately that in the junior high level, he has to go from one end of the building to the opposite end of the building to get to his English class after tech. He's always late for class. Hence, the teacher is now riding his butt like nobody's business. So it's, you can't keep building all these apartment houses and then not provide for new schools at every level, at elementary, junior, and high school. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The kids can't even get to class on time. So you got to start thinking about tomorrow's future and our children and what we're doing to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Darren Tierney, and I've lived up on the hill since 1957, and I raised my family there. It's the character of the neighborhood. It's, you know, I meet people every day. I walk the neighborhood every day. I don't believe I'll be able to walk that neighborhood again when this development comes in. It's where I get to meet my neighbors, my family, my friends, their pets. The traffic is really what I'm concerned about. It's going to affect the nature of our neighborhood. It's just too much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Morley. I've lived on Cedar Hill since 1961. And my big concerns are the water table on Cedar Hill, which is horrible, and it will never get better. It can only get worse with this type of development. And the second thing is the traffic on the roads. If you aren't aware that Cedar Hill is the biggest cut through between Fishkill and Old Hopewell, between 52 and Old Hopewell. So if I was in Fishkill, I wanted to go towards Route 9, I would go all the way around Cedar Hill. If I wanted to go towards Hopewell, I would go Cedar Hill to Rosewood to Pine Ridge and cut that through. The traffic on Cedar Hill is phenomenal. People do 55, 60 miles an hour on a 30-mile-an-hour road. Our animals get hit. This cannot be good for the community that is going on right now. Our children are at risk. I walk that road and around Dorothy, Rosewood, Pine Ridge at least 3 or 4 times a week, and the traffic there, they don't consider the people walking with their dogs now, and to add this amount of housing to our neighborhood is just unacceptable, and it's just bad for our lives. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
My name is Joe Camilleri. I live on Truffle Ridge Road, and I've been in Wapages for about 25 years. And I'm concerned about the increase in the school tax that this development will cause, which is a humongous payment every year. And so unless the gentleman's going to pay for the school tax now in perpetuity, I'm not for it.
Any other comments on any agenda item? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to close
Second.
Public
public portion. Sorry, everybody.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Thank you, everyone, for coming and sharing your thoughts to the board. It's important for us to hear, and there will be other opportunities. This is just a general. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Well, you know, I think after tonight, then it will be up to the board, to discuss amongst ourselves. The normal process would be, for the applicant in the future, tonight is just a discussing as far as a developer, then there would be a formal, proposal to the board for consideration. I think there's really three, issues as far as what comes before this board. One is with respect, to the zoning change. You've heard some about that. The second is being added to the water district. The water district doesn't go, it goes up to that property line, and also the sewer district, so that those units, if they were to be developed only for the property, we're not considering other properties at this time, would they be joined into the sewer and water district. So those would be the three items. The board then, once there is a proposal to the board, a formal proposal, then the board, would have a meeting to discuss that and then decide whether or not it would be calling a public hearing, for further discussion. Then once that public hearing were to occur, then decision would be made based on the public hearing with respect to those three issues. That's the process.
Mr. Supervisor, also, we would have to go through the seeker process.
Yes, correct.
And then,
Why don't you explain to the public what the seeker process is?
so the seeker process addresses all the environmental issues that were raised tonight, which includes clearing of land, traffic, water and sewer issues. It includes school capacity, police, fire capacity, impact on historical
Right.
properties, which was raised tonight, density issues, community
Please consider all
character.
three of them as one.
Yes, and that's part of the process.
Sure, that's
Yes,
part of-
one the-
yeah.
One of the parts
Yeah.
of the process is you look at.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I don't know.
Well, it depends on.
No, I mean, the other two aren't before us,
It's a
and
question.
we don't know if they'll ever be
Well,
before
that's
us.
the question.
That's the question. We'll have to
Question
talk
of-
with legal counsel.
He didn't buy the property to sit on.
Huh?
He didn't buy the property to sit on. He just bought the
Well-
property and went in front of the planning board, and I believe they're gonna kick it back to you.
Right, so
Well-
let me just say one thing, because I just want to put things in context here. The town is not proposing to do this.
Right.
Okay, this for us is the first time we're hearing about this project. Yes, it went to the planning board. The planning board did hear some aspects of this. The recommendation was to bring it to the town board because it would require a rezone, which only we can do. So we're not in any position to advocate for this project. It's currently not zoned for it. But I think it's fair to at least give the applicant the opportunity to present his project.
Rightfully so.
You folks are all here, and you can hear the facts of the project.
Right.
There's nothing signed and done here. This is a very preliminary conceptual overview of an idea of an applicant, right? So don't consider that there's any done deal here at all. The object of the game here is to hear the facts from the applicant. We heard your concerns. There'll be many more opportunities for you folks to express your concerns. You can always submit them in writing to the town clerk as well. But just understand, this is, as we know, this is how government works, right? A lot of people in the room are against the project. I totally see your point, but I think that the gentleman is here to give a presentation so that the facts can be heard, and then we can move forward from there. But I don't want the tenor of the room to be that the town wants to build this, because I don't think that's fair to say. I think at this point, gentleman owns property. He has certain rights on that property. The project that he has in mind doesn't fit into the zoning, so therefore, he would have to come before us to see if there's even a possibility for a zoning change to occur. We haven't even gotten to that point yet, so I just want to make sure everybody understands that that's basically where we're at right now. I'm hearing about the particulars of this project for the first time as my colleagues, and I think it's good that Mr. O'Donnell is going to be here to provide those facts. After he's done with the presentation, I don't think we're going to have time to have another question and answer session, but I'm sure.
Tonight, but in the future.
Right, in the future we will, but I'm sure Mr. O'Donnell will be happy to answer questions, when he has the ability to do so. So that's basically the back and forth there.
I think everybody that's here should listen to the presentation, write down your concerns, and you can always send them to the clerk.
Yeah.
But by all means, you need to be informed.
Right.
This is a great opportunity. We'll all hear the same thing at the same time.
I think, the whole approach that we've been trying to do with this board, for the last few years is to be open and transparent, put everything out there even before it is formally proposed once we hear of something. So we want to have dialogue. We welcome the input, that, we're getting tonight and get into the future. So that's part of the process, and we appreciate you coming here, speaking, sharing your thoughts, and like Councilwoman said, we welcome more input. I welcome seeing people. I think everyone is in
I
that
represent
position.
most of the people here. This is my ward. I'm here to represent you. So feel free to contact me if you have any questions after this. But this is the first time I'm seeing this and hearing this. And I want to make sure that we're hearing the same thing. Yes?
I'm just confused because at the planning board, they recommended that they both come together, that be considered as together. So, like, where's the disconnect between the planning board and the town board? Because that's where we were all left off, that they're going to be considered together because they're both going to have significant impact on traffic, the ecosystem.
I don't know, are we talking about Mr. Donald's project or the two Cedar Hill projects? I understood the two Cedar Hill would be brought together if they were to be brought. Okay, well, this is the first we've heard of that, yeah.
Okay, but tonight, right now,
Yeah.
we have Mr. O'Donnell here. He's going to present to us.
Right.
If other people have projects to bring forward,
Yeah.
they will be given the opportunity, and you as residents have every right, this is still the United States, to tell us what your concerns are.
Right.
And we will address them, I guarantee it.
And
I've lived here my entire life.
I'm not familiar with the Cedar
Believe me.
Hill project because it hasn't gotten to us yet, but if they choose to give a presentation and need a rezone, it's going to be a similar,
Yeah.
it's going to be a similar situation.
And
right?
process, same process.
Yeah, so that's why we don't attend the planning board meetings for a reason. There's a separation of government there. It has to be that way by design. So when they see something that needs to get to the town board for a rezone, they may hear the project at that point. You folks may hear it at that end, but they're going to recommend it to us anyway, and we're going to give you even more opportunity to provide input on those projects. That's how we've been running things. And
Exactly.
that's why when you say combine things, we keep saying keep them separate, because from this perspective, we only know at this moment about the Pine Ridge project. If the Cedar Hill project decides to apply as a joint thing or as a single thing, then they're going to have to come before us as a town board with a rezone application similar to this type of presentation.
If I may, Mr.
Sure.
Supervisor. So, to the extent of environmental review, they would, if the projects are all going to feasibly go forward, they would be considered from a seeker point of view altogether. But the town board looks at each application individually.
Right.
Rezoning one property does not necessarily mean another property will be rezoned.
Right.
The town board has an obligation to consider each rezone application separate and apart. And one of the things that the town board also has the ability to do, which was raised, was the comprehensive plan, is to look at if amendments to the comprehensive plan are required for, these applications. Just so the public is also aware, there was some legislation that was being considered up in Albany regarding affordable housing and a requirement that each municipality build a certain portion of affordable housing. It was proposed originally in the governor's executive budget, but last week was removed.
Yes.
So there is some pressures on the town to have affordable multifamily housing.
But we're not talking about that.
We're not talking about that
Talking
tonight.
about that, but,
Right, to be fair, though, we have publicly said from this dais, when that was appearing in the governor's budget, that we believe we're a home rule town, we make decisions on
Right.
land use, and that's our position. It has since been removed from the governor's budget, so that's not an issue. But that said, don't assume that any rezone is going to be granted at this point.
For
You know,
anybody.
At this point, it's for them to make the argument to us collectively that it's going to be something that's going to have benefits that are going to outweigh the impacts. That's my opinion.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak?
So I'm going to make a comment. So
Oh, we did
I was,
close. I'm sorry, I'm like, ugh.
I just want to make a quick comment. So I was actually at the planning board meeting when it occurred. I wanted to find out what was going on. Typically, we don't attend those, but I was actually in attendance, and they did talk about the three projects. So the folks in the audience here are absolutely correct. They did talk about the three different projects. Specifically, tonight, we're talking about
Mr. O'Donnell's projects, and I have a lot of the same issues and concerns that the residents have tonight as well that I will be probably asking Mr. O'Donnell to address later on tonight. So again, I was there, room was packed, 125 plus people. So again, I saw some of the issues. I talked to a number of the residents. Even though I represent the 4th Ward, a lot of it affects me from an All Angels Road perspective. I have a number of residents that are off there that, you know, during campaigning they had issues with it. So we are fully aware of a lot of the issues that the residents had. And again, this is the first part of the process. This is only, you know, the 50,000-foot view. We're going to have many more meetings, more discussions. We'll be able to answer more questions for you. Hopefully the contractor and the builder will be able to answer those too. But we certainly understand your issues and concerns, and we do appreciate everybody coming out here tonight to express those interests, both for and against the project. Thank you.
This is also going to be on the website. This is being recorded, so anybody outside watching TV or friends that aren't able to watch this, that connection is there. So you can go back at any time and listen to Mr. O'Donnell's presentation or what your neighbors have said.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Mr. O'Donnell, the floor is yours in the order of the agenda.
Thanks. Yeah, my name's Craig O'Donnell. I live at 640 Wheeler Hill Road. My great-grandparents came from Ireland in the late 1800s and landed in Beacon, New York, so my history is long and established. I've been building houses in the town of Wappinger for 41 years. I drove by the first house that I built in Wappinger just recently, and it's still standing, so that's good. Tonight I'm here to request inclusion in the Wappinger sewer and water district on property my family owns on Old Hopewell Road. Property's located on Old Hopewell Road. If you're going towards Hopewell, it'd be just past Pine Ridge Drive on the right, sort of across from Scott Drive. Property is currently zoned R40, which mathematically would allow probably 35, 36 houses on it. The property extends 2,900 feet from Old Hopewell Road up the hill. You'd never know it looking at it. It looks just like it goes from there to the Marcy South power line, which runs through it a couple hundred yards into it, but it goes well beyond that, way up the hill. The benefit I'm providing to the town, if granted this this rezone and inclusion in the water sewer district, is basically to bring water and sewer to that property, extending it all the way up over a half a mile up the hill, so that in the future the residents of Van Voris and Pine Ridge, Winfield, and what's the one up on the top of the hill? No, all the way up on the top is Forest View. Yeah. They would have possible accessibility to water and sewer up there. I've just listened to everybody here that commented, and it sounds like the major issue they have up there is water. And if this was built as I'm proposing, I am proposing to bring the water and sewer all the way up there and bringing it to the property lines of my property, or at least create some type of accessibility so that they could tie in at a later time if they chose to do so, which would alleviate any future water problems that apparently they're having. It's you know, that area is famous for failing septics and failing wells. We just heard it from some of the residents that are up there, and I think if I was given the opportunity to bring this infrastructure up there, it would help alleviate that. One gentleman mentioned about the school tax. If this proposal was to be built, the estimate is on taxes between $450,000 and $500,000 a year would be coming to the town, including the school tax. I know there's a lot of concern about the children coming into the school. It's going to overburden them. However, I own another property that's similar to this, smaller in scale. Basically, I'm mimicking that property to be built here, and it has no school children in it. I have young couples, there's singles, and then there's older retirees or people that have sold their house and are living there and don't want to have a house anymore.
Is that
Locals.
is that the Creek Ridge property you're talking about?
No, it's
Is
Deer
it different?
Creek up on Sheaf Road.
Okay.
Yep. I put a packet together. I think
I have it.
you guys have it.
Okay.
I have some photos in there. I have some interior photos and even a layout. This project that I'm proposing is going to be exactly the same. This project is going to stay completely private. So the taxes that come into the town are not going to be utilized on this property. There's not going to be any plowing. There's not going to be no mowing. There's not going to be any repairs to roads, curbs, sidewalks. It's always going to remain private. It's not going to require any subdivision. It's going to stay as a single piece of property forever. It doesn't require any variances. If it's zoned appropriately, then that's how it's going to be built. If built, the water and sewer fees are going to increase to the town significantly, at no cost to the town. The town's paying for nothing. Building permit fees to build this thing is going to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Again, no cost to the town. If built, this project will bring much-needed new funds to the Parkland Trust, to the park, rec fees, which is needed. If built, we're going to make necessary repairs to the Rockingham Sewer District, the one that we're going to be tying into. We've also already offered, tens of thousands of dollars towards sewer repairs. Talked to Mike Tremper about that. He's already identified what he'd like to have done.
You're talking about the I&I costs.
That's right. Again, the proposal doesn't need any subdivision. This project's already been granted approval by the Tri-Muni Sewer Commission. I have a letter from them saying that they will accept the wastewater coming off of this property and treat it. The town has an adequate water supply to supply this property. We've already talked to the town, and they have assured us that there's plenty of water and that's not an issue. If this property was to be built as currently zoned, the R40, you'd have 35 houses, say, with a road that the town would have to take over, maintain, plow, repair, holding ponds, the whole routine. We're all familiar with that. If it's built as proposed, there won't be any of that, none of those expenses. I'm proposing to build 12 or 13 buildings, 2-story in height, same construction as most every house around here. I have actually I can show you a picture of it if you like. A rendering, I guess. That's probably what it would look like, but I still have to go through ARB approval. I have to submit an application to the ARB, Architectural Review Board, for them to approve the color of the siding, the roofing, the windows, the doors, everything about it, colors. So I have to go through that. If you were building single-family homes, there is no ARBs. You could build whatever you want, any style you want, any color you want. There's no control. Okay. There is no Section 8 housing. I don't know who. No. No. You can? Okay.
Please let him finish.
Yeah, let him finish. Go ahead, respond to the question about Section 8 housing.
Okay, I will respond to this as I've said before, there will be no Section 8 housing. I'll write it in stone, and there will be no building there will be nothing done until you see what I'm talking about. There will be no Section 8 housing on this project. This project is a mid to high-end luxury apartment. If you've looked at the pictures and if you've looked at the properties that I've shown, these are $2,100. If they were rented today, they'd be $2,150 a month, okay? That is not affordable housing, that's correct. The clientele that I'm targeting is not going to be Section 8.
And you said this
That's
is
not
the same.
country looking? Okay.
Mr. O'Donnell, just address the board.
Yeah.
Mr.
Greg,
O'Donnell,
you know, they're,
I know. Well,
Craig.
again, I have to go before the ARB to have these styles approved, which I'm more than willing to talk to anybody about this property and the project, what you like, what you don't like, and move forward with that.
What is the?
The idea is to carve the buildings into the property. It's heavily wooded, as we all know. The scope of the basically driveway that goes up through it will be winding with the buildings scattered throughout the property with all green space remaining. If this was built as zoned, you would have 35 buildings, and then you would have to clear cut for septic systems and wells. And basically you would have what Toll Brothers did at Shamrock and basically just went through and clear cutted the whole thing. But my idea is to build lesser buildings, carve them into the landscape, and provide water and sewer, so there's no clearing for septics, there's no wells, there's no getting involved with the aquifer and creating more disturbance and dumping more waste into the ground, into the water table or the groundwater.
Mr. O'Donnell, Councilman.
I have
Cassell
just a
has
quick question. So
Yep.
what is the average price you'd be charging for a rental, around $2,100? Is that what you-
$2,150 is what I'm
$2,150?
charging at Deer Creek, which is, this is the same exact thing.
Okay. Thank you.
The wood look I'm trying to, I built other subdivisions similar to this property where we've carved the buildings into the landscape, into heavily wooded properties, leaving the woods in between the buildings, creating privacy. I know some of the concerns are about traffic. We've spoken to Dutchess County DOT. We've been told that the newly improved Old Hopewell Road will. Okay.
It's the same road. They just cut trees down.
Yep.
They paved it. Yeah, it's the same road.
So we've been in contact with the DOT. We've given some preliminary traffic counts. They do not seem to think that it will heavily impact the traffic flow.
But,
Okay,
well, again,
I have the
excuse me,
info from-
again, that's part of the
I
secret
have the
study,
info
right?
from the Dutchess County DOT I can provide.
That will be part of the
Right.
seeker study to determine
At
what
the
would be
planning
the
board
impact.
meeting, there was some concern about an entryway from Winfield. We've abandoned that idea because I get it. You don't want to have people coming out of this subdivision through Winfield, cutting through, et cetera, et cetera. So the only entrance is really going to be off of Old Hopewell Road with another side entry at the corner, at the bend of Pine Ridge, off of Old Hopewell, about 200 yards from Old Hopewell. So anybody going in and out of here, nobody's going to go through Pine Ridge Drive, Cedar Hill Road. Why would you
Craig.
go on to Pine Ridge Road?
Okay, why don't we
Craig.
let him finish his
Yeah.
presentation?
Like,
And let's have
Okay,
him finish.
Let him
that can be
finish.
This
addressed in the
property has
future.
nothing to do with Cedar Hill.
Craig, let's just finish your
Craig,
report,
just
and then these
Go through the
issues will be
presentation,
addressed.
please.
Almost every resident's going to come out, they're going to exit onto Old Hopewell Road. Nobody's going to go on Pine
Just-
Ridge Road.
Finish.
You have traffic lights that have been newly installed to create,
Please.
to alleviate stacking on entries and exits off of Old Hopewell Road. So that'll all be addressed. I built a property back in 2020 up on the end of Sheaf Road. I mentioned that before. 24 luxury 2-bedroom, 2-bath living units, currently renting for $2,150 a month. Fully occupied, waiting list around the corner. We're looking to do something, basically the same exact thing here. Talked to the county. The county's just completed a study on housing in Dutchess County. There's approximately 6,000 units short of what's needed right now. There are no rental units. So that is the big thing right now, is the county's looking for rental units. I have a copy of the study that I can give to the board for their review. If built, these buildings, if you went with the zoning, would be 35 on 1 acre. However, my proposal is to build these buildings on basically 2.5 acre lots. That would be the average. Again, the current tenants of the Deer Creek Apartments are single professionals, many working from home, using a second bedroom as an office. I have retired couples who have sold their home locally and no longer want the maintenance taxes of a single-family home. New to the area residents, people that are moving here can't buy a house, can't find an apartment, unable to find or afford a new home to purchase. Young couples who cannot currently afford or find a single-family home. I anticipate the tendency of Deer Ridge to be the same demographic. This property is going to be very similar to Old Hopewell Commons. I've spoken to the owner of Old Hopewell Commons. That's 45 units. I know there's concern about school-age children. He has 7 school-age kids in that property. So somebody's going around saying that there's going to be 350, this is the latest one I heard, 350 new public school children are going to be in my project, when it doesn't even come close to even making sense. The anticipated school-age children that would be living here would probably be 18 to 28. Yeah.
Please.
Out of 168.
Please, let him finish, please.
Out of 168. I have 24 that has 0. There's 45 that has 7. So.
You wrap it up, Craig?
Well, I can. You
Go
want me
ahead.
to?
Yeah, well, take a few more minutes
Had
and
enough?
wrap it up.
You had enough?
No, I mean, we have other agenda items. I need to move ahead.
Well, you know. You know, if this thing was built as proposed, I would have to have an ARB to look at the buildings. So everybody would see that, everybody would be happy. I can't do anything until the buildings are built according to the ARB, and nobody can move into them until they meet the quality. If you build houses, they can do whatever they want. They can make them any color they want, any size they want. Of course, they have to follow codes. There'd be a landscape plan. There'd be a landscape plan with this project. However, if you build single-family homes, there is no landscape plan. There's no landscape even considered or required. The landscape plan would even have to be inspected. Every bush would have to be counted. If built or proposed, there would be nothing stored or stacked around the buildings or parking areas. No unregistered vehicles, no blue tarps, no storage units, no anything. No bicycles even, can't be out of a rack. It's all controlled by the property owner. If built, this proposal will provide needed housing for Wappinger residents that can't buy a house or can't afford a house at this time. Retirees that don't want a house. These are mid to high-end apartments. Background and credit checks on all applicants are done. Every person that lives there is registered and listed on the lease, so you can't move in and then have your boyfriend move in and not be on the lease. Everybody there is listed. No riffraff will occupy this property.
Okay, why don't you close it up Mr. O'Donnell, and then we
Too
can...
much info. Too much info.
Well, I know you have a lot more info, but that will come out in another process.
Again, this project will be sprinkled. This will have sprinklers. There'll be fire hydrants, so they're safer. I can make them country looking if you like.
Please.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question.
It's the town's water.
Let me ask you a question. Is it appropriate that Mr. O'Donnell, submits any information to the record so that it would be available for folks to review at a later time? Is that at this particular juncture? Because, he's saying a lot of things, right? I'm taking some notes, but there's a lot of things that you want to probably go back.
I've submitted an outline.
Oh, well, officially
we have
submitted.
No, yeah, you submitted to us, but I would like the
residents-
residents and the
we want the
people that are
residents.
viewing to have the
Sure.
same opportunity to see what we see.
Well, Councilman Beal, let me
Sure.
just mention that I have been trying to contact the group's representatives since last fall.
Okay.
Does not return calls, does not return texts, emails, messages, phone calls, nothing. How am I going to
All right, so let me just stop you right there, Craig. So now we have basically a good share of the folks that have concerns in one room, right? So I think that the information that you were willing to share previously, if we can put it on a PDF or have it available as part of the minutes or something, so folks can go on the website and pull it down and see everything that we see, right? And a lot of this is preliminary, right? A lot of the things that he's saying is kind of at the preliminary stage where input could be provided if this even moves anywhere, right? So I think that since...
I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to put it in writing because apparently somebody's going around creating all of this.
Okay, we
That's
don't need to
fine.
go
Why
there.
don't you,
Let's
why
just
don't
put it
you
in
give
writing.
your
Yeah,
information?
this is your opportunity to do that.
Excuse me, let's give your information to the clerk. It'll be put on the website. Everybody here will have access to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love
Okay,
to.
thanks.
Okay, guys,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
Okay.
your time.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Angela, do you want to just recap that you're available for anyone that wants to?
Everybody has my email. You can email me at any time. My phone number is
Submit it
out
to
on the web.
clerk. No, submit it to the clerk.
Yep. Thank you.
There you go.
Not happy.
Bye.
Craig,
That comment was
if you could
unnecessary.
submit it to him in a digital
Yeah,
format.
digital PDF or something.
No.
No, I know. If you can. No, did you, like the drawings or something? I know somebody who does that.
And I'm not happy about that. Everybody, thank you for coming this evening.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it, right? This is like your Super Bowl right here. Keeps things interesting. Of course.
That comment was ridiculous.
Yeah, I
It
know.
was unnecessary.
No, it was.
You know what?
I know, that's why I
Very
said I'd shut 'em up.
unprofessional. He put himself in this position at the planning board. These people are really pissed off.
Where is
Who?
Malcolm?
He's right here.
Are you talking about the Chelsea thing, or is that Barbara, or is that Jim? Yeah. I think we'll have a long discussion on CPL fees.
Oh, yeah. We're going to table that one.
Okay, we'll,
Probably have to shut those doors.
I have all the board here, okay. We'll resume, and Barbara Roberti, you'll talk about, introduce the Chelsea Farm subdivision bond acceptance proposal.
Sure, so Chelsea Farm is a subdivision down off of Chelsea.
Yeah, get close to the mic, I don't
Off
know.
of Chelsea Road and River Road. They'd like to take the trees down before March 31st due to the bat situation in New York. The DEC says they cannot cut trees after March 31st. They went to the planning board and asked for permission. The planning board asked them to put up a bond of $19,000 and change, which we did receive today. And so what we're asking the town board tonight is to accept the bond, and it can be returned once the subdivision is filed, the plat is filed.
Okay. Jim, have you reviewed?
Yes, we prepared the agreement, and it's a cashier's check, which has been provided to the town. So this is Resolution 2022-52. In the interest of saving time.
Sure, we may do that.
If you could just act on it now.
Okay, so Resolution 2022-52 is entitled Resolution Accepted Undertaking Secured by Cash Deposit, that's $19,000, is what Ms. Roberti said, for restoration in connection with Chelsea Farm LLC. Do I have?
I'll make a motion to
I
accept.
second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, the next item, Barbara, you might as well stay up there, you and Malcolm. You know, as part of the ongoing, before we submit proposal, we had discussed previously about further discussion, clarification of some of the code changes that are being, proposed, will be proposed, as we've discussed. And these are the ones that involve the lighting and various other issues. So Barbara, why don't you refresh our memories on this?
Okay, so.
And this is not for a resolution tonight, this is just for discussion purposes.
So we started asking for certain changes to be made to the code. We've had a lot of discussions over the last few months. Some of our proposals have been removed, not the code, just proposals. Lighting is one of the biggest one that the planning board would like to see approved, as the town is moving with a lot of projects with LED that the current code doesn't address. There are a few other little things in here, such as garbage can or refuse containers should be brought in within an appropriate time and not left on the road for a whole week. Malcolm, who's here, our planner, has put a lot of this together. We also talked about fences on residential properties. So there's just a couple of little things. Let me just see, site easements in subdivisions. So it's just a few things.
So we're not taking anything out of Section 7 that talks about fires, open fires prohibited. That stays exactly as the code is today?
So the way the code was written, it stays exactly the same way. We had proposed some verbiage changes to make it clearer, but at this time, we removed our proposal, and we'll readdress that another time.
Okay.
So Malcolm, why don't you, go through a couple to highlight the points, and then the board can ask any questions it may have.
So as Barbara mentioned, the current fire code remains unchanged. There had been some concern in terms of restricting, the time frame at which you can keep your garbage can on the street. The last time I was here, what we had agreed upon was 24 hours prior and 12 hours after that particular calendar day. If that still appeals to the board, that can stay in. Is there anything?
I don't know, 12 hours is enough time. I mean, I certainly understand 24 hours prior, but, 12 hours, not everybody gets an opportunity to.
12 is not enough.
I think
Would you like
that's
it to
not.
be 24 before and 24 after?
I think that's probably better.
I think that's more reasonable, because some, people work late, they don't get home till, late at night, they don't get an opportunity to do it, so.
And some go away or what have you, depending on the time of the week, I think some are out, like in my area, I don't know about yours, but it's collected on Friday. So somebody might have gone out Friday night and comes back. So I think I personally think, just, even for myself, I get it in right away, but I think 24 hours on both ends.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay,
So-
so that'll be a 72-hour window surrounding that particular calendar day. What had also come up...
Councilman Beal had a comment.
Yeah.
Just refresh my memory on why we're regulating garbage cans.
So, in terms of the size or when they're out on the street?
Out on the street.
Out on the street.
Out on the street, from my understanding, this was an issue with the building department, which was that they were getting numerous complaints about people leaving them out all week.
Regular, yeah.
That they stay out on the curb all week, and you just bring the trash out to it, as opposed to, and the way that the code was currently drafted didn't allow.
And sometimes, Bill, it's even out in the street, and I think the key problem is that they don't bring them back in off of the street, and Barbara can address it. We've had numerous complaints over the years.
So no one in the building department is going on any street to see when garbage cans are coming in and out. This is specifically for customers, or residents that leave them out in the road. They get tipped over in heavy winds, they go across the road. It's a problem when we're trying to plow for snow. So the issue is nothing in the code gave us teeth that if somebody leaves them out indefinitely, we can tell them they have to bring them in. So this is specific to complaints only. For somebody, Mr. Phillips has someone we had a problem with. So this is really not for us driving around, because it's not our job to figure out what day of the week it is for their trash. But when we have constant complaints, we need some way to tell them, you have to be a good neighbor, you have to bring your trash cans in like everybody else in a fair time. Obviously, if someone went away and they're gone 2 days, we wouldn't even know, and most people wouldn't complain about that. When we do get a complaint, we're very clear to say, is this all the time? Was this maybe someone sick? Maybe somebody's away. So these are for more the constant complaints of people who just feel they can stay in the street indefinitely.
So 24 hours prior to the day of collection, and then 24 hours after the day of collection.
Yeah.
That's correct.
For a window of 72.
Well, rather than using hours, you should probably just say day.
Day before, day after collection?
That's fine.
So what you're saying?
That's
Okay.
fine.
Just want to make sure I'm going to be following the law.
I'm with you.
By the way, we'll be down there taking pictures of your residents. Make sure you
This is going to
are.
be on the website. People need to be made aware of this.
So what day's your garbage pickup, so we know, so we'll be down there to check it?
Sorry.
This should be on the website.
Don't check.
In addition to being a law or whatever, I mean, people are going to need to know about this.
I think when we, my preference is the next meeting, we would have a formal proposal to the board, which then still requires, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hand, but public hearing, is that not correct?
Yeah, I mean, so we do have, some
Yeah, that's what it
provisions.
would be.
We don't address, there's a Article 3 of Chapter 210 of the code, which was originally adopted back in 1989, addressed some of these issues. It's actually pretty outdated because it would essentially prohibit, by its terms, the containers that are now being used by Royal Carton. It doesn't allow anything larger than.
32, I think is what it was.
32
So
gallons.
in response to that, because that came up at the last meeting, I took a look at what commercially is available, and of course, if you have a private garbage collector, they're going to tell you what the maximum size can be. But we added an amendment to that section of the code, increasing the permittable size up to 95 gallons, which is the
I think
upper end.
Should be 96.
96, okay.
So I want to make a stipulation. If there's a cul-de-sac, you're doing a cul-de-sac, Bill?
Listen, the plows, we'll just say this, the town plow pretty much put my garbage pail back in the yard. Okay? We'll just leave that one. It was missing parts when I picked it up last night. Wait a minute, I didn't pick it up last night, it was the night before. No, so if my garbage gets picked up, and this is crazy, but I just want to play this out. If my garbage gets picked up on Friday mornings at 5 a.m. or whatever time, 6 a.m., remember that whole debate, right? 6 a.m., that means that I can't put it out prior to 6 a.m. on Thursday.
Well, no, that's the reason why you go to a day.
So tell me,
instead of 24 hours.
Counselor, when can I put my garbage out in the town?
12:01.
Wednesday. Okay, now we get a little flexible.
start.
Okay, so
no,
I could
12:01.
Wednesday night,
If
but
it's picked up Friday, then it'll be 12:01
So,
on
but normal
Thursday.
people would go out the night before, right? So Thursday night I would put it out. The most important part of this legislation is when do I have to have my garbage can back in?
Right.
So Saturday.
11:59.
So that means Friday I come home from work, I can put it off until Saturday.
Correct.
Until midnight almost.
And if you need help, Al and I will come over.
I should be good. I should be good with this law. I should be. Don't go patrolling my.
Okay, let's move on, because this will come
Really,
back to
let's-
us,
let's-
and
yeah.
let's move on.
I know
So
what
the-
you guys are thinking.
The other big change was the discussion that we had about the electrical vehicle charging stations.
Yeah.
Essentially, we have taken that language, we've made it clear that electrical vehicle charging stations are not compulsory, but if you want to build them, this is how we would like you to build them. So that is now a recommendation.
Yeah, not the station itself.
Either way, yeah, absolutely.
Conduit under the ground.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought, that it was, it's up to the particular vendor or whatever contractor to have it there if they want to have it through the conduit, but that's it. Nothing else is required.
Right.
But
No.
again, that's upon them to say whether they want to do it.
Correct.
We're not going to
Yes.
enforce it.
It
They
just
have to
really,
do
at
that.
this point, if you choose to build them, it spells out how that factors into your other
That's fine.
parking calculations.
It's a recommendation.
Yes.
Now, let me ask this question. So I understand why you guys were discussing this ahead of time, because there had been some discussion about the state of New York requiring electric vehicle charging stations on certain properties, right? So I think our intent, or your intent, was to perhaps lay the foundation, if you will, ahead of a New York State regulation. So, first of all, my position I made clear at the last meeting about this, but what is the likelihood of the state of New York adopting a building code change to require that?
If anything, it would probably come in the energy code.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any discussions. I haven't.
All right, so-
I haven't seen any.
Yeah, I haven't seen any
Okay,
either yet.
so at this
I
point.
haven't seen a current draft, but.
At this point,
No.
I agree again, we're reverting back to the non-compulsory language. If we do see a possibility of something like that happening, then we can always revisit this code, right? But again, I just don't, from a philosophical standpoint, believe that the town should be dictating this at this particular moment in time when 3% of vehicles are electric.
Sure.
I agree.
Agree.
I agree.
So, the big substantive element of what we're considering here is the lighting code. For the most part, it is unchanged from the last time you saw it. The question that I remember being asked was, is 15 feet as a maximum for the pole height unreasonable? I've done research on that since. The big issue is glare, that if it gets much taller than that, you run into issues with glare, and that's really a result of a switch to LED, that the older lights were better suited for being at a higher elevation, but that 15 feet for LED makes more sense. And again, at the end of that lighting section, should, for any reason, a property developer say it makes a lot more sense for us to do it outside the code, the planning board has the ability to waive any elements of it in the interest of good planning.
Okay.
So that was, I think, one of the questions we had, because if you take Adams, those are, they have to be 45, 65 feet high. And so it's upon the developer to prove that the light's contained within the property, correct?
In a photometric plan.
Okay.
Yeah. The other question that we looked into since the last time that we were before you was the fences in the front yard. The most elegant solution is to remove those, have those be 10 feet back from the road to make sure that we're not going to run into any issues in terms of obstruction and safety issues. So that remains unchanged.
And how are we defining the front yard now?
Yeah.
Because this is the whole issue over there. Sorry, Malcolm.
That's okay. Come on.
Point of contention here on.
Real bounce. So a front yard is anything that has a road. So if you're a typical interior lot, meaning you have people on either side of
Right.
you have one front yard.
Right.
If you're on a corner, you have two front yards. You have the street that is whatever your side is, and it could be your house, it could be a driveway, but however the post office gives you an address. So those are two fronts. And what we're trying to do is keep people from putting 6-foot-high fences so close to the road that it impacts sight distance, and it's a safety issue.
Right, right.
So.
That has nothing to do with decorative, the sign, the fences that are near driveways that are white, that could, okay.
So you're building in a 10-foot setback on a public
Well,
road?
it really has 10 feet, it's 10 feet back from their property line. The town, in most cases, owns 12 feet of
Yeah, but
everyone's front yard.
Not in all cases.
No, I said most.
Yeah,
Not
well,
where we're
that's
talking
part of the
about.
issue too, right?
But in
That's the
most
issue.
cases, we own 12 feet. The other issue is on a corner. Nothing comes to a point because
Right.
it affects sight distance. So part of the code is to come in with a survey to see how it's cut. The fence just can't come to an L.
Is there a height restriction on front yard fences?
That's what we're looking to do.
What are you looking at?
4 feet.
Okay.
So we looked at and talked about 3 or 3.5 foot, but today, commonly all fences are either 4 or 6.
Yeah, you can't buy
So it would be a
4 or 6.
financial hardship, you'd have to have somebody have the fence made.
Right,
Yeah.
no, we don't want that.
If you wanted to have a fence along the road that did not obstruct, sight
Vision.
lines, it would have to be below 4 feet, which is not how fences are sold. So that's why we brought it.
Right, right.
At that point, it's a garden, 2 foot.
But what you're saying is if you do have a fence on your front yard, and it is properly set back from the road, it can't be higher than 4 feet? Is that correct?
Correct.
Because I know of at least 1 or 2 that are relatively new construction that are 6 feet
That's right.
on Old Hopewell Road.
And there's some that do create quite a sight distance issue, and we're trying to avoid this going forward.
Right, but in this case, these are just normal lots that have neighbors on each side, so,
Unfortunately, we can only go forward with this.
what would be the point, though, of putting a 4-foot restriction on a property that has no road on the side, you know what I mean?
Dogs, children, a lot of people like to have a fence so that their children can't run into the road.
Right.
A lot of houses on busy roads.
No, what I'm saying is, what is the point of restricting it at 4 feet
If it's set
6
back.
feet.
if it's set back?
That's a good question.
No, it is a front yard, so.
But it is, I agree with you, Bill. I think that's,
I think there
in
are,
those limited cases.
there are some cases
Some.
where
Yeah.
folks, I'm just thinking of my German Shepherd. A 4
Yeah.
foot, that's nothing.
But it doesn't keep,
Right.
even 6 feet. Yeah.
6 feet's nothing.
6 feet, you could just jump over.
No, but I think that we may need to further discuss
I
that because
agree.
there are, and I see where you're going with this, and I appreciate that, but I think there are gonna be some circumstances where, are we gonna require, a variance for 2 feet on a fence height on a front yard? That's something I think we should further discuss. Maybe take a ride around the town as the weather gets nicer and just make sure that we're not inadvertently over-regulating something. I get it where we're talking about on Connor, Hamilton, that whole thing. I get that. That is also a road that doesn't meet spec. There's a whole bunch of variables there. So I get that, but I think we need to
I agree.
we need to sleep on this one, and further.
So this,
deliberate.
though, is not retroactive, right? It's only
No, it's just
forward-looking.
moving forward.
Line on
Yeah.
corners,
Right.
even though it would be set back, 6-foot-high fence, still impacts people as they're pulling.
Yeah, I'm not talking about corners, though. I'm talking about,
Yeah, you would still have.
I'm just talking about a normal
Front.
parcel with 2 neighbors,
Yeah.
right?
So we can amend that 6, but then it becomes you're penalizing the person who happens to be on a corner versus their next door neighbor.
Well, I think you can make an argument that there's a sight distance issue.
Clearly,
on the
there's
corner.
sight distance issue, as we know in existing cases.
We can amend that for when we come back, or we could also pull this from the.
No, let's, amend it, let's talk about it when we put it before the
think we
board,
need to-
hopefully next meeting, and then we can
We need to
decide
talk
then
about
whether or
it.
not we
Yeah.
keep it in or we pull it.
I mean, you also have
Okay.
folks that have,
But let's-
you have that property on 376, property that has the big gates and the big fence, 6-foot fence. I mean, it's not really a fence it's just a decorative fence.
No,
that
but
has
it's
big-
it's well back off the road, though,
That
too.
received a variance,
Right.
that fence is 10 foot high.
Okay, so that received a variance, but again, that's a parcel that's not on a corner. Doesn't bother me, to be honest with you. It doesn't bother me if somebody wants to do that. That's why I want to make sure we're not going to inadvertently be over-regulating something that doesn't need to be regulated. I get the corner thing, though. I understand the corner.
Okay, so Malcolm, think about it, come up with maybe some other language, we can talk about it, and I'd like to have it, all these on the agenda of the next board meeting, so we
Sure.
move it along.
Yeah,
And
no, I
then
agree.
we can decide then,
Right.
whether or not there's still.
So the thing I'd like to request, if we're going to have it on the next one, get it to us at least a week
Yeah,
early, so you have an
absolutely.
opportunity
Yeah.
to take a look at it, ask you questions,
Please.
et cetera,
Yeah.
So for the board's information, some municipalities put a restriction on fence height in the front yard because of people backing out of the driveway.
Yeah, okay.
But on those cases, again, they typically allow a fence at the property line. But if you're going to move the fence back, if you're gonna have a setback of 10 feet, then the site
Right,
distance
right.
backing out of your driveway typically is not an issue. I mean, obviously, if you've got a curb or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why you put a restriction, and it's usually less than, it's usually maybe less than 3 feet because of the sitting eye height of somebody
Right.
in the driver's seat.
I get that.
The other reason why some municipalities will prohibit stockade fences or any visual blocking fences in the front yard
yeah.
for an aesthetic point of view, so that you, as you're driving down the road, you just don't have in essence, a wall.
Right.
You want to be able to see in a typical village
Right,
environment.
that's
where you
exactly though, but in
see-
densely populated village centers and town centers, I get that, right?
Right.
But I'm just thinking of some of these new houses on Old Hopewell Road where they have, they have the long driveway, that, there's this one beautiful house that, they put up a fence. And initially I was like, well, I don't know if even that's permissible, but now that it's done and it actually is permissible, it doesn't really bother me. I understand why they did it. I see their dog running around the yard. So I see where you're going with this. I'm not necessarily against where you're going, but I just want to make sure we
Right,
think it
sure.
through. And sometimes, on the weekends, if my wife lets me, I leave the house and I can drive around and look at things and form an opinion, right?
You have to bring the board.
There you go.
I have to bring at least one child with
Take her
me.
for the Sunday ride.
So, but yeah, I just want to sleep on this one, because there will be residents that see this and say, wait, what about me, so.
I guess one question is, so now we're going to require a fence permit?
No, that's just gonna be in the code. People call all the time, do I need a permit? The answer is no, but there's a but, and everyone in the office tells them how high, can't be at this time, higher than 6 feet, it must be on your property. It can't go in an easement, like we go, and if it's a corner, they go speak to Barbara. And then I tell them how it has to be on a corner.
And there's still no setback, right, on the property line, right?
Not at this time.
That's right.
Personal
Right now, yeah.
responsibility, right?
Now, here's the problem.
Make sure you know where your
Besides
property
what
line
you were talking about, we have properties, other ones where they own into the road, where they own within a foot of the road.
That's different.
It's different, but there's enough that this would keep the fence being.
I agree with
a foot
that.
off the
I agree
road.
with that setback on the road. I get that. I'm just saying that I like in this town how we don't have a setback requirement on property lines for fences. And I agree that, hey, listen, if you put that fence up and your neighbor does a survey and you're on their property, that's on you. You gotta move it. It's not, the
That's
town
right.
doesn't get involved. That's neighbor
That's
versus
right.
neighbor.
And there's another, a good reason. We're not surveyors.
Right.
A lot of people don't have surveys, so to ask them to get a permit, they would have to go out and spend.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I don't
Don't need
wanna
to do
do
that.
Yeah.
And then again, we're not.
That's not fair.
We're
Yeah,
not
that's not fair.
authorized
Can't get 'em
or
now.
certified to go
Yeah,
out and go,
that's-
yes, that's where you're certified.
Agreed.
So
But
the
that's
onus
the
is on the
problem with
property
enforcement.
Well,
Yeah.
I went out and found the pins, just like everybody should, if you have them. I found them, and then I went 3 feet in just to make sure,
Yeah.
right? That's personal responsibility. That's what we do. So I agree with most of what you're trying to do here. I just want to think about that one part of it.
I mean,
You know, the one question I have is, I see the corner lots, obviously, somebody comes up, we're talking about fences, what about shrubbery, trees? So the person who's not allowed to put a fence will say, the guy across the street has a big, beautiful tree there. What's the difference?
We don't look at landscape.
Okay.
But the town highway department has in the past, if it's within the town right away, reserved the right to tactfully trim.
Right.
Right.
Or ask
What
them
is?
to remove it.
Yes.
Or remove.
I mean, one of the things you can do in a site easement is restrict the vegetation there to a certain height,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
Safety is the
there's plenty of-
utmost.
Well, as long as you maintain it.
Right, some
Yeah.
municipalities, again, it's a site easement that's granted to the town, so that the
Right.
town could if the property owner doesn't do it, then the town comes in.
Right, and as they should. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a safety thing.
And we've got, a lot of subdivisions where we reserve site easements for that.
Good.
Where
What,
they've gone-
Malcolm, any other changes that you've done, finished it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
For us tonight.
And we're, and just real quick, the open burning, open fire thing.
Yeah.
We got to have a conversation, Bruce, you're going to be involved in that, revisiting that section of the code, because it doesn't take into consideration some of the contemporary things you can buy at Home Depot and
Right.
cook s'mores in your backyard. So Bruce should be involved with that, just from his fire background. And once we get through this, and once we get a few extra minutes, we can sit down
Right.
and start
Next
looking at
Talking
that.
about that.
I just don't want to inadvertently be, like I said last time, restricting things that we shouldn't be.
So just to put on the record, the last time, the only thing we were doing was to let people know they couldn't burn rubbish.
Right.
Household materials. We love that people go out and cook frankfurters or sit around at night, with their
Right.
family or friends. But we had a lot of instances in the last 2 years where people were burning pine leaves that were causing
Right,
problems.
right.
We have a lot of people who are asthmatic
Yep.
or have other illnesses, and when you do that, it causes such dark smoke.
Yeah, of course.
As you know, they're either calling 911 and
Yeah.
sending the fire department out. Some people, one guy was burning formica, so it's toxic in the air.
Yeah.
So all we were trying to do is clarify in plain English so we
Right.
could take a copy of the code and hand it to a homeowner and say, this is not allowable.
Right, and then it does put the fire department in an awkward position sometimes, because the neighbors are calling saying there's smoke, you get there, they got a hot dog on a stick, and then you're like, well, okay, the neighbor's still calling, right? So, it's not a perfect situation, but I think that if we can just revisit that section of code, make sure that we have environmental and safety on our side in the code, right? And we're not over-regulating inadvertently, I think we'll be good. So that'll be the next chapter.
That's
Yeah,
important.
but not for this
Not
round
for
of
this
proposals.
No,
okay?
not for this one. We'll move these
Well,
at the next meeting.
Stay up there.
I'm just getting my notes.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to assume I was next.
Right, yeah. The next item is the text amendment, for Alpine Commons. Malcolm's going to review what is intended, to be presented to us in the future by them.
So the first thing to clarify, I'm not sure if it was on the agenda or where it showed up, but the phrase rezoning was introduced to this conversation. This is not a rezoning.
Text.
It's text amendment to the shopping center district that you are entertaining on behalf of the Alpine Commons Group. There were also a couple of issues. Well, let's just jump right into the memo that I prepared. The first question is the concept of the development site. This is one of the things that they have proposed to introduce to the Wappinger Code, and it is the idea that, for tax reasons, for leasing reasons, we can look at the map of the site and say, these are going to be 6 different sites, but for the purposes of development, for the purposes of yard restrictions, area calculations, things like that, we can treat this entire entity as one lot. That is the concept of development site to be introduced, and we can tinker with that if you have questions or concerns. But that's the first big concept that will be introduced with the Alpine Commons Group. Are there any questions about that before I move on?
Yeah, so just to clarify, so
Yeah.
you're saying that the text amendment would be applied to the entire parcel as one, right? So whatever uses would be allowed within that SC zone, the text amendment would make permissible on the entire parcel? Okay, so my question to you would be, and I don't know if these options even exist, but they presented these different phases that they were contemplating, whether it be the apartment buildings up on the top, or the tiny homes in the rear, or perhaps a future single freestanding restaurant type thing. In zoning or planning, is there a mechanism by which a parcel of this size can be broken down into different quadrants or different zones, not zone, but different areas, so that we could restrict the use in that particular part of a parcel rather than doing a text amendment for the entire thing? Does that even exist?
Well, what
I don't
you
know.
could do,
No,
one of the things
it's-
that, the way you could do that is require a development plan for a development site.
Mhm.
In which case, you would then scope it out for different areas of the site. And that's not, I mean, I've worked on projects where that's been done, and that's part of the approval process. But, you know, it's in some respects similar to a phasing plan, but, you know, it would be approved, and you could, you know, put that in the text amendment to say that that's something that the planning board would do. Also, one of the, with respect to what's called 280A, which requires that individual lots have frontage on a public highway. One of the concepts here is that, you know, there would be landlocked parcels in here.
Yeah.
Now, under New York Town Law 280A, the town board has authority to create an open development area to permit development on a lot that does not have access on a town road. So you could also put that in the 280A access issue as well as the development plan as part of the development site. So we could roll that all into one. You know, because that's one of the challenges here with respect to development site. You want to look at densities for the overall project. You want to look at, you know, lot coverage.
They were
you know,
curious
things
about
like that.
one, using that, but also, you know, concentrating development in the center, in which case you run into issues with, you know, side yard, backyard requirements, causing issue and spreading it out in a way that perhaps it doesn't make sense for this. To clarify your question, Councilman, are you curious about restricting or allowing certain uses on some of these sublots and restricting them on others? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm curious to know how restrictive we could get with respect to a text amendment, right? So do we have the ability to restrict uses via text amendment in specific geographic areas on a given parcel? That's my question.
Yes.
Okay. And the reason why I'm asking these questions is because I do understand there's another SC, right, which is Hannaford
Right.
Wapner Plaza, right? So my point here is that it's always going to be brought up that a text amendment in a particular zone could inadvertently create permissible uses on another given parcel, right?
That's right.
So if we approach this very tightly, right, and we are very specific geographically on what would be permitted on this particular parcel, for example, on the south side of the parcel in this particular area, it would be permissible to do, you know, the multi-dwellings, you know, and you would determine a density rate, you know. And then there have been some brainstorming about, you know, single-family tiny homes or something on the northeast side, you know. This could be indicated within
Right.
the text amendment process, right? So that we as a town have strict control over what would be occurring on this large parcel and where on the parcel it would be occurring, because yes, we are trying to create as you say, village within a village concept, but these types of things can go rogue if we don't have this foundation laid from the very beginning, right? All of a sudden, 10, 15 years down the road, we got an apartment house on the north side.
Sure, and I think
right?
that's
You know?
legitimate concern.
I think that the best solution would be what Jim mentioned earlier, which would be a conceptual development plan, where, you know, not only do we make changes to the SC zone, but we take a look at how they're going to be implemented,
right,
and you approve that, and then that goes to the planning board.
I think, you know, the key that at least Diamond and Dakota have stressed is they want, you know, through the text amendment, some degree of flexibility to address the new age requirements for retail, right? And so we don't want to be overly restrictive, but I agree with you, Bill, that that sort of thing is appropriate.
And I think that's a very, you know, good point. And one of the things is you don't have to necessarily require a development plan for every type of development. You could just say, if you're looking to put multifamily housing in the SC zone, that a development plan is required.
Correct.
Or if you want to pursue a development site, you need to come in for
Right.
consensual
Right.
development.
Right.
But
And
if you just want to put a Popeye's chicken
Right.
in the Hannaford's Plaza, you can just
Right.
proceed under the regular.
Right, because that's already within the zone, but.
Right.
And I'm not really even referring to Jim Diamond. I'm looking 15, 20 years down the road, right? This
Sure,
thing's done,
sure.
right? And then
They've-
we're, it's a different generation.
Agreed.
And all of a
Right.
sudden now, our original intent was to have this thing, set up like
No.
this, but now all of a sudden,
Yeah.
we're gonna be, doing things that
Well,
weren't.
and it's not unlike, it's very identical to what our residents expressed tonight,
Right,
a
right.
concern about, okay, Craig O'Donnell may be a really great, legitimate, developer, et cetera, but what happens in
Yeah,
20
right.
years,
What happens in
right?
20 years,
So,
exactly.
I think, for this big parcel that's so
Sure.
important to the town, I think we do want to have a say, more of a say.
Correct.
In
We
that
have to.
development. And then,
No,
working closely
we
with the
have.
planning board on, what that development plan, looks like.
See, what I don't
We
want
have
to do is, I
to.
don't want to set a precedent, so again, I think I want to be more restrictive than less restrictive.
I agree. At
I'm,
this
I'm worried
point.
about if we say, as an example, we're going to do it for this particular property, Alpine, somebody else is going to come in, well, you did it for Alpine, why aren't you doing it for us? And then, you're talking potential lawsuits. I just
Well,
want to
you
protect
could. I mean,
ourselves.
The only other parcel is
there's only one.
Hannaford. And listen, it's empty. So if they have an idea, they want to come in and give us an idea that doesn't fit within that particular parcel, I'm all ears, because right now I'm looking at about 7 storefronts that are empty, except K-Pot's coming to one of them, right?
No, I agree.
Yes, yes.
I mean, but look
And
how long it's taken us to get, as an example, Popeyes in there for, I mean, come on, really? It's taken
Well,
that
and
long
then
to get them in there?
I do have questions with respect to that plaza too, but I just want to hear the rest of your.
For Alpine.
Yeah, for
Alpine,
Alpine.
because you just reminded me of something, Al, that I want to bring up before Malcolm's
Yeah.
done.
Ideally, this text amendment would allow for this type of development here, and also, this development and the text amendment would inspire potential redevelopment of Hannaford. So, if they're running into the same problems, hopefully we can solve both of them with one text amendment.
Malcolm, this seems like the ideal way for us to manage this property from the town point of view. So to everything, there's a pro and con, right?
Sure.
So what is not ideal for this, from our point of view?
What's the least advantageous part of this?
Yeah.
Well, there has been a lot of discussions between myself and the applicant that if this was a greenfield site, if there were no buildings here, if we were just looking at developing a village within a village, there would be certain possibilities that are not open to us, because we're dealing with the buildings that are there, and we're looking at reusing the buildings that are there.
Right.
So ideally, you would not necessarily see the multifamily buildings off on this side with the retail over here. They would be integrated together.
Right.
But due to the engineering, due to the current development of the site, that's not possible now. That might be possible in the future, but that's not how we're going to turn around this site in the next year or so, right?
Is it possible for them to build apartments over those buildings that are already there? I mean,
I
they're
have-
doing that in Beacon. They have the storefronts on the bottom, and they have the apartments upstairs.
I've been asking for the same thing,
And
and
why can't they do
unfortunately,
that?
it's an engineering thing. They'd have to take those buildings down and rebuild them.
They didn't take the buildings down in Beacon, and
No.
those buildings are a lot older than,
Yeah, but these are probably constructed not as strong.
With a
as those
different kind of
Yeah.
vision in
I'm
mind.
surprised.
The problem is that
That's a
these
good
buildings
point.
are about 2
no,
stories
I'm
tall.
really
And I've seen a
serious
lot of
about
places
that,
like that,
because
Angela, they do that.
Yeah.
I've seen that quite a bit.
Yeah, they told me, I don't know if you're on
Well-
call, but that the footings, the whole pad, everything is totally inadequate,
the
for
engineerings of
doing
the
that.
building,
They'd like
yeah.
to do that,
That-
actually.
that- I never
Well,
even
that
thought of
would
that.
make more sense than building, I mean, you have that there, it's already there. There's got to be some way that they can take advantage of that, and I'd like to hear why they can't.
I can get more information
Please?
for you.
Because I
specifics
know
on why
other
that's not
areas that they
possible.
have done that.
Sure.
Thank you.
That would be an interesting layout.
Yeah, it would be, it would be.
We can certainly look
Actually,
at
it
that
would
as
look
an
very
alternative.
nice.
Well,
We can push for that
that's
as
what
an
I
alternative.
proposed to them, actually, the
So-
village within the village on both sides of the
What's
right,
there right
Barbara?
there?
You know, we were
It's
trying to get
probably a
that.
function of the spans.
They said that
But let them
they
come
can't
back to
afford it.
us with reasons and other areas that they haven't, that they've researched.
Sure.
Because that's a way to use this property and these buildings without doing new construction.
Yeah.
They did indicate that they could put like a a rooftop deck restaurant.
Yeah, restaurant.
Or they could do something, right, exactly.
and that's what they're looking at.
So,
Use the
roof space
if
in
you
some
could get
way,
that
yeah.
information
Just no
back to
housing
us.
is what they said.
That's a
Well,
good
yeah,
idea.
Let it, get it back to us and see what it
Absolutely.
comes. I appreciate it, thank
Yeah.
you.
What was your position on hotel here? Is that within a C, within an SC, or within a?
So that was, yeah, I guess, changes in the permitted uses in the shopping district. Let me see.
Because that one parcel that they pointed out, what would be wouldn't it be more advantageous just to rezone that one parcel that they had expressed potential interest of a hotel on, rather than make a hotel a text amendment for a shopping center zone? I don't know, you tell me.
So my thought on this, because right now, hotels and motels are only permitted in the highway business and COP zone, no, CC? COP, the Conservation Office Park. That rather than simply adding it as a use to this, we take this as an opportunity to look at how motels and hotels
Right.
are regulated across them. That we would, instead of making it a generic special permit application for a hotel, we
Yeah.
would create specific hotel and motel special permit criteria. And at that point, we would feel confident adding it as a special permit to the SC zone,
Okay.
knowing that any hotel or motel for SC, COP, or highway business would have to comply with
Same.
whatever performance criteria, whatever special permit criteria we lay out.
Gotcha.
That's my idea for that.
Okay.
Speaking of new uses, they've proposed a bunch of new uses. Some of them make more sense than others. One of them that's been floated around that people like a lot is sort of light industry, either 3D manufacturing. Another one would be breweries or distilleries. There are some that they proposed, which I made clear to them I would not be recommending to you, and that was the 4 automobile-centric uses that they proposed, which are
Right.
automobile retail, the storage of cars, the rental of cars, and the fueling of cars.
Right.
I think if we're pursuing a village within a village, it doesn't make sense to use up that much space for
I
seats of
agree.
cars.
Right.
The only
I
thing, let
agree.
me stop you, because we've had this conversation before a couple times. There have been a couple times in the past 10, 15 years where BJ's has expressed or explored having gas pumps for their members.
Yeah.
Is that, how would that fall into this? Would they have that opportunity or no?
They would not, right now, as far as I know, we've got an application from BJ's looking at a parcel just up the road in the Highway Business District. You know, that application I haven't reviewed yet. It's on the planning board meeting at the
Okay.
end of March.
How about
But-
storage units?
Storage units, you mean like personal storage units?
Yeah, like personal storage
I
units.
think that makes a certain amount of sense. I think it shouldn't be done at a massive scale, but what we're looking at for these 2 buildings that are currently vacant, not the BJ's building, but the other, what they're looking at is breaking them up. Right now, they're big box stores, and that business model isn't really working for their tenants. And so what they'd like to do is sort of split it down the middle. And the front side of that would be smaller retail spaces, break it up into a few different smaller retail spaces. And then the back that has all of the loading bays and things like that, that's where we can use it for storage space, for light warehouse, light industrial, breweries, things that need that kind of square footage but don't want a front door in a retail
So
pedestrian.
is that an idea they've expressed, or is that just something you're giving them an opportunity?
They've expressed.
Yeah.
At the
So-
last meeting there.
To use the warehouse space in the rear at the loading dock. So that would be, that type of storage would not be the, and correct me if I'm wrong, it wouldn't be like the retail personal storage.
It could be.
Oh, it could be?
It could be. We could look at personal storage, we could look at warehouse space, we could look at light industrial, anything that would be, you know, relatively low traffic, would not require pedestrian activity, and would benefit having a loading bay.
Okay.
What about a medical facility?
We've looked at medical offices, veterinarian offices. I think that both of
Well-
those make sense for this if we're looking at village
Right.
within a village, right? Doctor's offices, dentist
Exactly.
offices.
Exactly.
What about the-
Dentist,
what
you know,
about the,
that sort of thing.
The one use that is like, remember when the pharmacies all popped up 10, 15 years ago? Now it's the urgent cares, right? So
Right.
would an urgent care fit into this type of
I haven't looked at that, but I can double check. Barbara and Jim.
I don't think there's enough, I
Especially
don't think
people
there's enough
living
space there
there.
for some of the urgent cares, they're pretty big.
Yeah, we,
I'm talking about like a Medicus style one, like
Right.
a small Pulse MD type.
Exactly.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I just see them popping up everywhere, and it seems to be the
Yeah.
trend.
yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, and if you have people living
It's not
there,
currently permitted in SC. Right.
It would be, what we're trying to do is get uses to give them some latitude, that as people are coming in, they don't have to keep coming back to use
Right.
Madigan's. Or once this, if it goes so far as to get to the planning board, they're not coming to the planning board every time they get.
right, an
A use
idea
that we
or
haven't
something,
thought
right.
of, or,
And-
yeah, absolutely. I also think that it would be a good idea, I mean, some of the best ideas come from the public, and I think that it would be a good idea to think about scheduling a public hearing, bringing in the public hearing what they think on the
would
whole
want.
concept, and also if they have ideas for uses that we haven't thought of
Right,
yet.
what they would want, exactly.
What makes the most sense for their neighborhood, exactly.
know.
So let me just ask this question. So the uses that we just discussed, are they currently permissible under the SC zone, or is this part of the text amendment?
That would be part of the text amendment.
So right now, in an SC zone, it's a shopping center zone. What uses generally are consistent with a shopping center zone?
Retail service,
So like liquor stores and retail, restaurants?
restaurants,
Supermarkets, right.
personal service.
Spas, things like that.
Like tax, what have you.
All right, so,
Offices, you could have an Allstate office, like Hanford Tax, an insurance office.
See a lot of retail offices, yeah.
all right, because my understanding is there's an application for a Jiffy Lube in the other shopping center.
Yes.
So that's a permissible use within the SC zone? That to me seems out of place.
Well, it's not different than BJ's had, I think it was Monroe or whatever, and now it's just BJ's Tire, and they do oil changes. That's been there in that SC zone for years, under other corporate names and now.
No, I get it, yeah, I mean, I see it. It's just different when it's inside of an anchor, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that would be a permissible use within I guess within a plaza. You know, these zones were created decades ago, and
For that kind of a thing, yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, we gotta think outside the box. I think that's what we're doing,
Right,
right?
that's what-
But there are certain existing permissible uses.
Right.
You know?
But a lot of them today aren't marketable. The big box
Right.
store has
Right.
died, and it's very hard for small stores, if they don't have other stores bringing the public in. You almost need each other to bring in the traffic.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Gyms are big, and different types of youth entertainment, whether it's the bounce place.
Trampoline world, something like that,
trampoline
yeah.
world,
Could use one of them.
A rollerblade.
They're looking at it.
place, something for
Bill wants
youth.
go-kart.
Bounce is a great time.
Yeah, they are.
So,
They do.
Not for me.
So,
Yeah.
finish it up. you know.
moving away from the uses,
Yeah.
this is where we get into the nitty or gritty, the numbers, the dimensional regulations that they are looking to modify. And this is where we see sort of small increases in what is currently the permitted density or development of the site. In particular, right now, mixed uses applies to the SC zone, and mixed uses caps residential density at RMF 3. They're looking to increase that to RMF 5. If we were looking at a true village within a village, if we were looking at a real downtown of a walkable village, it would be considerably higher than that, just to give you some context of what RMF 3 and 5 translate to, right? Downtown Fishkill is something like RMF 19 or 20.
19 or 20.
And so the idea, you know, looking at the retail shops in Beacon with the residences above, that's going to be considerably higher than what they're looking for here at RMF 5. Additionally, they're looking to increase the floor area ratio from 0.3 to 0.6 to accommodate some of this additional development. And they're looking to increase the building height, which is currently capped at 2.5 stories or 35 feet, up to 4 stories or 55 feet, which is a sizable increase depending on where that building is built and what that visual impact is like.
So Riverbend East. That's how tall they are,
Yeah.
approximately. But these are up on the hill too, so,
Yeah,
you know, you
that's,
gotta kind of take a look at it.
Factor that in. I don't know
Yeah,
what
we're
what the visible, especially where they're located, I don't know what their visibility would be like from the houses behind.
Yeah, we'd have to take a look at that.
Yeah. That's something to weigh. I don't.
What was the total number of units they were looking for up there? Do you remember?
144.
144.
Okay. And,
That's not counting the,
retail and everything.
the tiny homes for veterans. That's
No, it's
just
just
the
residential units.
multifamily, yeah.
all right, I'm just curious. I mean, at this point, we're just still brainstorming this. And
Yes.
No, I'm just throwing
Yeah.
numbers at you and curious to hear what your thoughts are. Yeah, exactly. Finally, we're looking at revising the parking regulations for the SC zone. So the parking regulations were drawn up a long time ago for the idea that these were going to be big box stores and we needed a parking lot that was going to handle Christmas Eve style shopping.
I don't think anyone's ever parked in that parking lot. at
No,
one
they
time.
haven't, never.
Right,
No,
no one's ever
BJ's has
parked
2
there.
parking lots.
Never.
There's 3 and 4. 4 doesn't look like it's ever had a car in it before.
Now they don't even do anything
No.
with it. I mean, it's like
They
trees
never-
growing up.
I
Yeah.
think there are trees growing through it.
So, an important element of this too is that they're looking to pursue shared parking. I don't know to what degree that will work if they keep the residences partitioned away from the retail, but they're also expecting the parking regulations, the parking requirements to go down substantially because they're going from fairly large, big box stores, which have big parking
Right.
regulations, down to small retail and then, light manufacturing or storage, which would have a considerably lower parking requirement.
Way too much asphalt up there.
So
Yeah.
something that we're
Really
looking
is.
at,
It's
I
too
mean, we're
much.
looking at revising the parking regulations, but we're also looking at creating a green space in the center of this
Perfect.
with small-scale retail built around it, something that could be used for soccer field, a farmer's market, et cetera, but breaking up that central mass of asphalt with something green,
Right.
something pedestrian-friendly, something to get people out there walking around, and then, hey, maybe they go over and spend some money.
He had mentioned that they did a project in Waltham, Massachusetts. Do you have that information?
I don't, but I
You
can
can-
get
if
it.
you go on their
I'd like
website,
to
you
see
can
what
see.
that would, is
It's
it
on
there?
their website, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, they look good, but it's, you're only seeing just their angles and photos. But,
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I mean.
If you
again,
could get me the name, I can look
Sure.
at it. I have friends up there. Thank you.
So, as far as the parking regulations, I've asked them to provide a parking study. I think they'd be happy to do that once they get some inclination as to what uses the town board is amenable to and what uses they are not. And that once they have that information, they can give us a parking study and I can start giving you much more detailed comments about their parking scheme and what makes the most sense for this site.
Now, has there been any discussion with state DOT on this one?
Yes, the supervisor has more information than I do, though.
And they're engaging with them to discuss that point. But that is the kind of the most serious hurdle that they have right now.
Yeah, so we need to make sure that we're all on the same
Yep.
page. It's very important that
Agreed.
we utilize a controlled intersection that exists already. You know, my opinion, we're trying to repurpose buildings here. We're trying to be proactive in our planning and zoning to ensure that this property is continued to be used, and we have to think outside the box and do things differently as we
Right.
move forward here.
But that's why I alerted them, in the good relationship I have with DOT and, the DPW, I alerted them to that issue. They need to explore it.
Yeah, so they have their traffic consultants.
Yeah.
Who are working on it.
So is there any issues with the current access, both into I'll say the site itself, and is there another access?
Well, that's the core
requirement?
issue. DOT has raised the concerns about the one access and says there needs to be a secondary access.
And that was kind of where my question was going.
That's the issue that I've raised with them based on my discussions with DOT, wanting to understand what are our challenges in the town. But that's where they raised that there needs to be a secondary access. What is that location? I think we've made it clear to them that there's locations we don't want it to be.
Right.
Right, and so they're traffic consultant is now working on that.
Okay.
And one of the other questions that I had a discussion with Neil Alexander from, on behalf of the applicant, and the question was, is the second access, could it just be limited to emergency purposes?
Right, exactly.
Rather than, full access?
We got a multi-lane in and out with a controlled intersection onto a roadway that has 40,000 cars a day, okay?
With 2 left turn lanes in.
2 left turn lanes coming in, all right? So that, from my position, is the primary in and out of that entire town center, right?
Yep.
If they need access for emergency purposes to Old Hopewell Road or Losi Road, whatever, emergency purposes, I don't have an objection for emergency purposes only, and I get that, having a second, I get that. But I do not see it being a positive situation running traffic anywhere else except for the Route 9 controlled intersection.
Except we don't get an opportunity to make that call. That's not us, right? We got to follow what DOT says, correct?
Well, I mean, we have to.
We can have our opinions on it, right?
Yeah,
But
I mean, if we don't like what we see, then, I think that's going to be an issue that probably the planning board, really looks at more closely.
I'm just giving you my opinion.
No, and that's.
So
And I just wanted to bring it up because that's what I heard, that they were requiring a second access point, so.
I think I mentioned it.
Yeah.
This building, in the early 90s, when this was originally built, let's not forget, it wasn't originally going to be just BJ's and just the grocery store. There was, read the minutes back then. They were gonna put a movie theater up there. They were gonna put a restaurant up there, okay? There were other things that were gonna be up there, and that's why that major entrance was designed of that size.
Yeah,
So now to say that it's inadequate when there's, an opportunity to further expand the uses of that site, I mean, I think that we really got to further explore that.
Right. Agreed.
Just my opinion.
Nope. We're all in agreement.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you have any other
And I'm just
questions
bringing up the
about this?
fact that that's what was said, so I'm okay with that.
Yes, so.
I think a lot of the public was misinformed by that map.
Yeah.
So
was an old
the map that they
incorrect.
submitted originally with their proposal, I believe is originally for internal purposes. It's dated from 2020. And the key to it has some erroneous information, which has since been,
Yeah, there's a street name issue. There's some discrepancies on it.
Well, there's
More
in
than-
particular, there is a mention of rezoning parcel 1, which is not on the table.
Right.
And
Right.
they identified parcel 4 as a potential site for a gas station,
Which is not on the table.
is not on the
Right,
table.
that was, my understanding was that was a very preliminary document that
Yes, sir.
probably should have been revised prior to entering the record.
Absolutely, yeah.
Correct, but a lot of residents saw that and commented.
Okay.
On the
Right.
gas station, and they felt what type of housing it would be. And it's
So-
clearly market rate.
For the record,
Yes.
market rate housing is being proposed. There is no gas
gas.
station currently being proposed, and there's no rezoning being proposed.
Okay.
The only thing we're looking at is
So
a text
that-
amendment to the SD zone.
Right, so their presentation last time was consistent with what we're talking about now.
Correct.
Yes.
The document that folks are probably seeing online is
Wrong.
not consistent
Wrong.
with the conversation we had. Okay. All
Correct.
right, so we need to make sure that we have
That has to be
the latest.
updated.
We need a new map from them, and we need to.
Yeah, and they're aware.
Got it.
And make it clear there is no rezoning.
Yes,
That's
Yes.
very important.
That's right, Angela.
yes, exactly.
And then Malcolm, as you continue to do your good work, we got to keep an eye on Wappinger Plaza and make sure that, we're not going to have an entirely empty plaza at some point. I know that the one restaurant is coming in, that's good, but, you have the old tax place, the old Hallmark, the old dollar store, the old,
Right.
We just need to make sure we're continuing to make sure that we're not, restricting uses that could potentially go in there,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
normal maintenance type things that we need to do, looking at our code, that's all.
I'm hoping that all of the changes that we make to the SC zone for this particular parcel allow for, a fruitful redevelopment of the
Okay.
Wappinger Plaza as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Malcolm, and
Thank you.
again, thanks
Thank
for
you.
all the hard work. It's-
Appreciate it.
Okay. that's
And
the-
just any correspondence, if you can just make sure, you've been doing a great job, but just make sure you CC the town board, this way we can
Yes.
see it ahead of time and be part of the discussion if we need to be, you know, one-on-one between the meetings if there's,
Right.
you know, things we see in the code that we want to have addressed at the next meeting. This way it's, you know.
So Malcolm, have you discussed with them what their plan is, the next step? Is it to, at the next board meeting, or what, to propose this officially, or what? What's your-
So I'm not sure what their next steps
Okay.
are. I know that they are currently working on a more detailed conceptual site plan.
Okay.
I'm not expecting that this week. I am expecting it next week, but it would be ready if you wanted to.
Well, we don't want to
expect it.
rush it. I mean, we want all these points addressed
Yeah.
adequately. I'm just asking from a point of view of scheduling, so we can
Sure.
get an idea. right?
So, what's the date of Monday next week? That's the 7th. I'm
So-
expecting a more detailed conceptual site plan on March 8th, at which point we can circulate that to the board, and any additional information that's come out between now and then.
Sure.
That would be good.
Tomorrow, I have a standing meeting with them on Tuesdays, so tomorrow, if it isn't decided tomorrow, it'll be decided on March 8th,
Right.
what they are hoping to do for their next
Okay.
steps. And we'll make sure that.
Jim, I think you can talk with Neil Alexander and just give him that perspective.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
So we have that, okay? Thank you. Yeah, thanks again. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Malcolm.
Thanks.
Okay, sorry, right now I'm sniffling. I had root canals done today. I mean, 2 crowns, and the Novocaine's worn off.
God.
So, one of them was right close to the nerve, anyway. So next is a series of resolutions that we have. I'd like to put on 2022, what is it? 2231. So Tim has a long ride home, and he's been great sitting through this, but this is resolution approving the engineering services agreement and fee proposal. Tim, maybe just briefly summarize.
So we tried to keep the fee schedule the same. My rate got bumped slightly, try to get it back to industry standard. I also highlighted a draft version. We added additional services to the schedule, not necessarily fees. So we added some architectural representation, a senior architect and a junior architect. And then another modification is with our survey group. Because of technology, we've invested heavily in GPS, drone flights, the 3D scanning, which you guys saw a taste of relative to Carmack and whatnot. So we got away from our kind of old-fashioned way of rod man, instrument man, party chief, and we got it now as a single one survey group, 1 person, 2 person, and then 3 person survey, and that's all relative to not only the technology piece, but also prevailing wage rates. When we have to do survey relative to like design services, you know, we need to pay the state prevailing wage rate. So our previous rates were significantly subpar to considering the wage rate. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
So just a couple comments. So number one, I'm glad you're keeping your rates flat from 21 to 22, so that's good news. But one of the things I want to make sure that we receive is, you know, all correspondence. I know there's a number of projects that you guys are working on, and sometimes we don't always see everything. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we get copied on some of those things, that's all.
Sure thing.
Okay?
Yeah, please.
Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
How's the garage going?
What's that?
How's the garage doing?
The garage is progressing, and we made a commitment to the board, I did for my team, that we wanted to go out to bid in February, and we missed February, but we're going to be going out to bid by the end of March. So when we have the final documents, we'll call it a final draft, and we can share that with the board prior to going to bid. Does the board need to approve going to bid? I know we have a bond for general.
Yeah, we got the
Typically that
1.25 million bond out there, so.
But I mean, you would get the final draft and then.
Yeah, I think we still just review it. You can, you know, as a discussion item, you know, at the next board meeting or whatever, you're ready.
And do you need to update costs too because of what's happening with inflation and everything else?
Well, the way we structured it, we
I know
thought
you had
about trying
contingency.
to estimate costs, but really your true temperature is to go to bid on it. And we pared down the scope to the critical items for the 3-bay garage, for the lift. And, you know, we wanted to get that done and get it priced real time, so.
Do you want to bid alts?
Well, we thought about bidding alts. There's alts that are gonna alternates shorthand for the existing building that's the mechanic shop. And so for alternate's sake, we added a roof, new roof, and we added doors and a new metal skin. But those will all be priced as sort of à la carte so that you can, make a final determination.
So is that in addition to the 1.25 or inclusive, and then we do
Well,
à la carte?
ideally, it's gonna be inclusive, but
Depends on what comes
pricing,
back in the
yeah.
bids.
Right.
I know we're bidding another highway garage pre-engineered metal building. It's been tough. It was $1 million over budget like last year when it bid, so we're actually rebidding it with several alternates. But the other thing to keep in mind with these pre-engineered metal buildings for this particular project, 46 weeks out
Wow.
for delivery from receiving an approved shop drawing. So you gotta say, we're gonna need everybody behind the process to, once the bids come in, provided they're in budget, we need to get going on an approved contract.
Right.
And then from there, we can start
Right.
the shop drawing process. But nothing is happening in an expedited way, so.
That's a surprise.
Yeah. No other comments, questions? I have a resolution approving
Make a
the
motion.
appointment.
I'll second it.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion is approved. Thank you, Tim, very much, and thank you for
Thanks, Tim.
the team effort.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
Just moving ahead,
Careful driving.
leave probably two, so we table them for next time. But Jessica, you're here. Frederick, Jessica, you want to talk about the tuition fees? Yeah, come on. Frederick is listening. Frederick, get ready, come here, and you'll be up next.
So Dick, I think one of the things we want to do before we have Jessica get up there, I think we want to pull this particular resolution. At least I think I want to do that. And the reason I want to do that, with economic times being the way they are, I know Jessica's got some increases here of $25 per area, but total impact is less than $6,000. I think, me personally, what I like to do is keep rates flat from 21 to 22. Again, that's my personal suggestion. I don't know if the rest of the board agrees with that, but
I
if that's the
agree.
case, I think I want to pull that resolution and not go
Well,
forward.
I'd like Jessica at
Sure,
least to
sure.
address that.
Sure.
Jessica, go through what you were proposing, and if we want to pull up, that's fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So we were talking a $25 increase across the board for all of our different pricing structures. Since 2019, when we last raised the fees, our staffing costs have increased, and that increase is about $10,000 in staffing, because minimum wage has gone up multiple times since our last price increase, to the tune of $2.10 an hour. So over roughly 17 staff members, 8 weeks, because we do include training days and things like that. Camp is 7 weeks, but the rest adds up. It does come to about a $10,000 staffing increase, theoretically. That all depends on enrollment.
And that's out of the B fund, right?
Yes.
Do you have any significant issues with timing if we were to table this and go the next time?
It would delay the start of camp registration.
Okay. But that's not
But
crucial,
by
is
how
it?
much? I mean, a week,
If it
couple
were to be
weeks?
on the next town board meeting,
Yeah.
it would just delay it by 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do? I mean, if we're not interested in raising rates, right? I mean, personally, based on the economy uncertainties right now, I'm not interested in raising, as Al said, I'm not interested in raising tuition by $25
Right.
for people right now.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, the
agree.
town, the town has the ability to be flexible right now in the B fund.
Correct.
That's the bottom line. It's not
Okay.
worth nickel and diming. I appreciate
Yeah.
your fiscal accountability, though. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
But how do we move this without the tuition increase and not delay anything?
Jim?
There's no vote required for a withdrawal.
Well, you'd have to
Yeah.
vote,
You could just vote it down.
It doesn't record, the Amtrak doesn't record.
yeah, I mean, you just,
So the resolution is calling for an increase, right? So
Right.
if we don't pass the resolution, there's no increase. My
Correct.
question would be, does the program continue, though?
Correct, the rates would just
yeah,
remain
I
in
mean,
place.
the only question is what was appropriated for purposes of revenues in the budget.
All right, so I'm going to move Resolution 5-0, but I want to amend it. I'm going to amend Resolution 5-0 to revert back to the previous tuition cost
I'll
Oh,
second
that's
that.
fine.
for
Well,
the
no,
year,
I mean,
for the year 2022. So we're basically codifying the tuition rates of last year for this year.
Right.
I don't think, I mean, I haven't seen the last resolution, but if you don't make a resolution, I mean, you can make a resolution to continue them. I think the way, if you just copied the last resolution, basically what it says is the rate continues until the town board takes action to
Oh,
do
does
otherwise.
it, on the previous one?
Right.
Okay, so, all right, then we
So
can.
it would continue. The only thing
If
that
you
would be,
If you feel more comfortable and we can go with back the 2 weeks, is I can bring you a new one just that has rates.
Well, I don't know if a resolution is necessary if there's no change in rates, is that
Right.
correct?
Correct.
the only,
So we can get
like I
it
said, the
finished
only
tonight.
issue, and I don't know if, I don't know what was budgeted for revenue.
No,
Okay.
it wasn't.
So,
I'm conservative on my revenue estimates.
okay, so you use the revenue.
Yes.
Okay, so then you don't need to make any changes.
Okay, so.
Okay, so then here, we'll just vote this down.
Vote it down, or did
Don't
you
even
just pull it?
have
You just,
You withdraw the
withdraw the
resolution, right?
just, that's it, just withdraw.
So Al had recommended that first, so I'll yield to the councilman from Ward 4 if you want to motion to withdraw the
Yes, I
resolution.
make a motion that we withdraw the resolution here. We're going to keep the same rates as 2021 for 2022.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thanks, Jessica.
Okay, Frederick, would you come up and discuss the resolution on transfer of funds, please?
So I'm here to request the board to make some budget amendments to our 2021 budget because we have received bills, a bunch of bills from various vendors, and we need to increase our budget lines in order to pay these bills. And I know this point we have discussed it in the past, whereby I think we agreed that for 2022 we're going to do a much better job. We come before the town board well in advance, and if we see that there are some lines that are going to be overrun, we present the case and make request for monies that we'll be able to reach to the end of the year. Unfortunately, these are 2021 lines that are over encumbered, and as you know, the law says we cannot pay without the budget being amended. I know that there are some concerns about some of the amounts, but what I was trying to do here, for example, let me take the legal line, the A Fund 40-2400. So we have bills that are currently with us. We have gone through them, reviewed them with the attorney, back and forth, and now we are kind of in agreement. So I wanted a situation where if I request for this, then I don't have to come back again, because I know 2021 there's some months that they haven't sent the bills yet, I think November or December. So my estimate, for example, the 49,000, it was based on the bills that we have on the table that have not been paid and what we actually paid last year, 2020. So that's how that number was arrived at. There's also the engineer line, which I'm requesting for 91,000. Because when I look at what we spent last year in 2020, we spent 160,000, and so far we have only encumbered 70,000. So that's how the 91,000 is coming about. Central Hudson, as you know, they have increased actually their rates and tariffs, and they have sent communications to various parties about what's going on. I know, for example, for the month of September through January, even though they had billed us, they sent a revised bill in which they revised whatever they had billed, increased the rate and billed backwards 5 months. it's a terrible thing, but some of these things you have to, you know, like Central Hudson lighting, if you don't pay for them, you're going to be without light, and you're going to incur interest charges. HVAC, Steve is here, I can explain some more. This is a line that I've come before you several times. Right now we are over 100,000, but still, I guess there was some work that had to be done. And I did send the bills to you by email, so you could see what we were talking about. So that's how the 20,000 was arrived at. The rest are basically contractual, royal cutting, refuse and garbage, recycling. Yeah, so the main ones are just the 1420, 1440, A fund, B fund, DB fund. So I would really appreciate if these budget transfers are approved so that we can pay the bills tomorrow. Some of the vendors have been emailing, calling, asking what's going on. And we told them we had to come before you to approve the budget transfers before we can pay the bills. So that's where we are right now.
So let me ask a couple questions. So I guess question number one is, are vendors, consultants not getting their bills in on time? I mean, this is a lot of money out here between the attorney, the engineer, you know, that bills are coming in from fourth quarter and the first quarter. We just did a transfer back in, you know, December. We're doing another big one now. And I understand that, you know, you put money aside here that you assumed in your A fund balance, B and DB, that would cover this stuff. It just seems like all of a sudden these are starting to this. I mean, we're talking in total here $280,000 that we're going to be asked to transfer. It just seems like an absorbent amount of money that, you know, we had no headlights on. I know you were kind of planning, but we didn't see any headlights, and we just got the details today. So I'm concerned that this continues to happen every quarter. And we need better headlights on this. I mean, we're very fortunate, as Bill always says, we have money to cover this stuff. But what would happen, you know, someday, or if you didn't have the money? I mean, we need to have a better eye on this stuff. I get it, HVAC, separate issue, right? We all know we've had issues with that, but some of these other things on this here just seem very absorbent. So in the data that you presented back in, I'll call it January, I guess it was, when you talked about the different fund balances, right? Are those fund balances still correct, or are they impacted by what you're asking for from a transfer of funds perspective?
So in estimating those fund balances, for example, the A fund had estimated that we would be incurring $250,000
So
over
roughly
and above.
206 here, so you assume 250.
Yes, over and above, right.
And how about the B fund?
The B fund, I only assumed 81,000, and the DB I assumed 294,000.
So you have more. Have more than enough. What you assume that your fund
because
balance
this
to
is
cover.
remember this is the difference.
So I guess the question is,
right.
you know, why are we getting bills late? Why aren't we going to vendors and saying, you know, waiting till February or beginning of March to get these things to get paid out? I mean, the services are rendered. What's taking so long?
There's an element. I guess there are two reasons. The first reason is that some of these bills are heavy in terms of content, whatever is in them. So when they send them to us, we have to really look at them line by line. And more often than not, we find that there are issues that we need to ask them to clarify.
But do we reach out to the vendors and say, listen, we know you've done services rendered, you know, where's the bill? I mean, it's just, I mean, $280,000, I get it, you had it covered, but it still seems like a lot of money. And again, I don't want this to be a recurring event here. Again, we're fortunate enough that we do have the funds to cover it, but I think we need to be more proactive and you know, chasing down some of these things. You know, again, I understand you had it in your forecast, but I mean, this just seems like, you know, we want to have a little more heads up and headlights on this thing, that's all. Just.
Yeah, Frederick, but the only thing that I ask is, It's fantastic you had this in your assumptions. That's really good. Please send that to us, so I don't have to have heart failure to come ask, when you're thinking you're coming to ask us for $280,000. Because, you know what I'm saying? It's great that you had that assumption. You knew it was coming. We didn't know that. So here we are, ready to string you up because you missed $280,000. You see what I'm getting at?
Can you send us a printout or an email on a monthly basis of what we're paying out, like you did with the details on this? Please,
Sure,
for
sure, I
all,
can do that, yep.
and what it's for? That's very important.
Is any of this encumbered, or is this, if these are pre-January 1, is it encumbered or not? Does it, I understand we have fund balance, but, I mean, if some of these are encumbered expenses to cover bills that were anticipated prior to January 1 fiscal year, I understand that. But does it require a budget transfer for that purpose then, if it's encumbered pre-January 1?
I don't know how you can encumber it unless you have the bill physically in your hand.
Right.
Well, if you have the warrant and not, you know.
Well, I mean, it's going to be encumbered because typically, you know, consultant services are billed 30 days after the fact.
Correct, that's what I'm saying. So I'm seeing a number of
Right, but
consultants.
unless you have the invoice, how do you know how much it's going to be? How can you encumber it?
You have a voucher, right?
You can't.
So just for
Well,
a
you-
good example, our dial-a-ride bill always comes about 2 months after the end of the quarter. So like, we get billed for our fourth quarter dial-a-ride bill and receive the bill in about February. So it gets paid out of 2021 funds.
Right.
Even though we're receiving it in February.
Right, so it would be an encumbrance, which my question again is, if it's encumbered in the previous fiscal year budget, right, for the purposes of paying a bill that's anticipated to come in post-January 1st, is a budget transfer resolution required for that? Should be no.
If it was, again, assuming budget transfer resolution was required because there wasn't sufficient funds.
In the budget line.
So then it wasn't encumbered.
Right.
Right.
So I agree with Councilman Casella. You know, this is a red flag, in my opinion, when, you know, we're not even to the end of the first quarter and we have, you know, $280,000 in bills. I understand why it would be concerned. I get it. I think that a number of these expenses that we're seeing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, are pre-January 1 that have landed in this fiscal year.
Correct.
So that, you know, we're simply transferring money from fund balance to cover
Right.
that. I think the proper way to do that from an accounting perspective would have been
Right.
to anticipate the expense before January 1st, encumber it, okay, so that it's separate and distinct from this resolution.
Remember that these are 2021, so the 2022 budget is still intact. We
Right,
have
but the
barely
op-
begun.
Right, but the optics of this is just not, doesn't, you know, anyone that isn't part of this conversation that looks at this resolution and goes, you know, what is this, right? How come it wasn't budgeted properly?
Right, what
I
are they
agree.
doing?
That's
Yeah,
exactly
I
right.
mean, we got
Yeah.
plenty of fund balance to cover these things, but from an accounting perspective, I think just the optics of this particular resolution don't pass the look test, that's all.
I mean, this is a typical I mean, most municipalities have a closeout resolution at the end of the year.
Right.
So I think, Frederick, back to what Councilman Casella is saying, you know, is that we need to probably by the end of this November, make sure that you're communicating with the various consultants that they need to get their bills in. I know in my law firm, you know, that I work at, we are required to get things in before the end of December, actually, during December, before
End of the
close,
year,
you know,
right, close of
before the end of
business.
the year. So I think your office should make sure that the consultants, and probably a standard notice going out to all the consultants that says, get your bills in.
And we do the same thing,
Within
or we do
December,
accruals, or you call it encumbering
Yeah,
it here, but
right.
we do
We
accruals
do-
for stuff.
That's the same thing.
Yep.
So I think we need to get that, you know, process in place.
And another thing also,
Or at
around-
least provide, you know, I think, you know, another way to do it is if not certain because of December, but at least an estimate. And generally, I can provide an estimate for my legal services, you know, and my other hat I wear. You know, I'm sure, Jim, you could provide, you know, you could say, here's what the accounts are at the end of November, and then December, then back to both Al and Bill's points, then we get it properly recorded, encumbered, whatever we call it, accrued.
And to the extent you overestimate, it, you know, the
Right.
overage becomes fund balance.
Correct.
Right.
Right. So I
Right,
think
so,
that's what, isn't that right, Al? I mean, what we're
Right.
saying is that we need to put that into place.
I think so, we put that
And,
process in
you know,
place.
make sure we're on a quarterly basis, we're looking at it, you know,
With the
more
details.
discipline.
Yeah.
Right. And I think
Please.
that's what we agreed that we'll be doing this 2022. Unfortunately, we also agreed that we cannot pay anything without the budget being adjusted, even if it's for 2021. So that's why we are here. But I believe that this year, we are going to make sure that well in advance, before the year ends, probably by October, we are going to ask for enough money that we feel should take us to the end of the year by adjusting the budget based on first what we have spent in 2021 or what we would have spent by then, and asking for our consultants to send us the bills of, you know.
Well, what are your typical payments, 30 days? So if you got the October bills and you pay it in November, so really what you're looking is 2 months, November, December, and you probably get November and December, so hopefully you're accruing for that already, or the payment has already been made. So it's really 1 month we're looking at, we're trying to capture here, and this just seems like a lot of money for 1 month.
Right. Yes, and also our way of budgeting. Remember we discussed this, that sometimes we may want to budget for an item the way we feel we should be, but because of the way we do our budgeting, we say, okay, let's do this. Come the following year, when we need more money, we'll come before the town board to ask for more. So that's also there. All right, so I think point taken and noted. And
So I guess my only question is, I mean, we just got a lot of the details. I think today you sent them out to us.
This was part of the agenda, Thursday.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the details he
Don't-
sent, not
He
you.
sent details
We
to us.
requested.
We requested it
detail.
separate, so we're not
Yeah.
talking about you, Joe.
No, not you.
So the question becomes is, did everybody have enough time to take a look at the details that Frederick sent today to approve this tonight? And if we don't, if we have to wait 2 weeks, does this impact any of our vendors and our relationship with vendors? Because you certainly don't want to impact that.
Yeah, I have no objection to supporting this resolution tonight. I just think that we need to just be more cognizant of this amount of transfer. I mean, I get it, I understand why this happened now, because we're looking at 2021 budget obligations. I get that. Just, I think we need a little bit more visibility, as you said earlier, on these things. Yeah, I mean, it's a $286,000 transfer. I get it. We have the money to cover it. I don't agree with the practice by which it occurred tonight, but I'm not going to hold it up because Central Hudson's bills are going up higher by the day. So we have to move money into that line, unfortunately.
I'll second it, but again, I want to see a more stringent process here where we don't have such a large number here in the future.
Back to the details, and I agree with the approach, but if you look at, and Jim, not to pick on you, but, you know, if you look at the bills that we're discussing tonight to pay, which are legitimate as far as the work done, but
Right.
it goes back to November, right? And there's a lot that are early December. From my point of view, those should be gotten to us, and then if there's like, and there are some for December 28th, I haven't looked at what the service time was performed, but obviously there's November, you know, that has, much of that's been done. So then we should be given the heads up, or Frederick should be letting us know that there's still that estimate going
And
forward.
that's why my first
That's
comment
what it
was, are we not getting
That's
bills
what
in
it
on
is.
time
Yeah.
from vendors, consultants, et
Right.
cetera? So
And I think
we
same
need to-
was true for CPL, so, yes,
Yes.
not getting in time.
Yep.
And we need to have a more robust process.
Correct.
You know, we get banged on
Yeah.
to get our bills out at the end of the year. 'Cause
Right.
we want to close out.
Right.
So that's what winds up happening. And then, you know, I think from Fred, you know, the year-end closeout, I think a lot of vendors do that. So, you know, I think the last.
A lot of vendors
month-
try to get all their stuff in before the end of December 31st.
No, but what I'm saying is.
At
the
least,
month
at
of
least
this-
in our line of business, they do. I don't know about you.
No, but what I'm saying is, in the month of, so those bills are coming into Frederick's office in December,
Yes.
so. you know,
Anyway,
and they
okay,
kinda
I
all
think
hit at once.
So
we
we-
got it, we need a process.
Yep. So we have a motion from Bill in a second.
Yeah, I'll move it.
I'll
Okay,
second it.
motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Okay, there's two other resolutions I'd like to propose, we table them because we have a couple of things for executive session we need to address. First is Resolution 2021-93, and that's for the charter, for the Community Advisory Committee. I propose we table that.
Second.
Move. Second.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. The next one, and Kevin's left because of time, is 2022-53. That's a resolution adopting charter for Wappinger Veterans Advisory Group. I propose we table.
I'll make a
Second.
motion to table it.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. We need to acknowledge the correspondence log. That's 2022-54. Do I have a motion?
I can't pass that one. I have no details.
We didn't.
All I
get
got
that
was the
from-
cover page. So I
Okay.
want to see the details before I
Fine.
I want to
pass
see
it.
the letters too.
Wait, what happened?
We did not.
So if you look at the
Correspondence
correspondence log,
log.
usually they give you detail from like Heather,
There's no
Carl, et
letters
cetera.
that
We
we
got
usually
nothing
get.
in the package. At least my package didn't.
I don't have it either.
All right, so just put it on for the next meeting.
Yep.
Table for
So we'll
next
table
week.
for
Right.
next one. So I'll make a motion to table.
Second.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Okay, so, right now, on the agenda, it's items for special consideration, new business. Are there any?
Just for the record, we had a productive meeting with the fire chiefs and the fire inspector and the director of strategic planning and CAMO. Jim Tremper was here to discuss fire hydrants. It was a very productive discussion. We've improved the lines of communication between the town and the fire chiefs, and vice versa, and CAMO with respect to a number of fire hydrants that happen to be on private property that need attention. So appreciate the, also I got to say Tim Moot was there too, which was good. So there's going to be some follow-up meetings in the future just to make sure that any issues are addressed promptly. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank
So I
you.
just have one question for Jim. So this has to do with some funds we approved. So we approved about $100,000 in funds to do a number of improvements for Robinson Lane, Rockingham, et cetera. Do we need to go back, because the board approved the money, do we have to come back in front of the board if we find a vendor to go ahead and do the work? Is there certain guidelines that we have? Because the idea is we're trying to get these projects moved along before opening day if
Again,
possible.
So if it's below the competitive bidding threshold, then it's just.
So
based
below,
on
what is the competitive? Is it 35? Okay,
35.
okay.
So if it's, less than that, then it's based on quotes.
And if it's less than 35K, does it have to be prevailing wage?
It's always prevailing.
Okay,
wage.
all right.
I have, the correspondence detail is part of your packets that we have delivered. I just forgot to attach it to the, so you do have it in front of you.
No, we don't.
No, we don't
You
have
it in
one.
your packet?
No.
No,
Who's attached,
no.
I'm just telling you, three of us say we don't have it.
It's not there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like you were leaving us in the dark.
I think you left them in Florida.
Anything else?
Sorry.
Okay, I'd like to have a resolution go in executive session for the purpose
I'll make the
of
motion, sir.
litigation review,
Second.
employment compensation, and employment, and promotion. Is that okay, Jim? Those are the
Yes,
issues.
the litigation is Tarpon Towers. litigation
Yes.
with the town.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Okay.